2022 at 7:30 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Publics Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the sunshine notice of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment. Such notice has been placed on the official bulletin board at the municipal complex and by transmitting a copy of the notice to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, and by filing a copy with the clerk of Princeton on April 29th, 2022, and has been posted to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/meetings. Pursuant to Executive Order 107, due to the state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19 coronavirus, notice that during the declared state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, and the Times, and was filed with the clerk of Princeton on the 24th day of April, 2020. Such notices have been placed on the official bulletin board at the municipal complex and on the Princeton website and are to be maintained throughout the year, and by transmitting a copy of same to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, Comcast Media, and by filing a copy thereof with the clerk of Princeton. Notices have also been placed on all window doors of the municipal complex. Okay, Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Chen,
Here.
Ms. Coulson,
Here.
Mr. Davich, Mr. Floyd,
Here.
Shriver,
Here.
Mr. Tenenbaum, Mr. Stein, Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Here. Okay, we have minutes to approve. They were in the packet. The first is November 18th, 2020. If someone has any comments, please make them. If not, if somebody would like to make a motion.
So moved.
I second it.
Okay, Claudia?
Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes. Okay, the next minutes to approve are December 9th, 2020. Same thing. If somebody like to make a motion or any comments relative to the minutes?
I move approval.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Claudia?
Sorry, who's second?
Yes.
Shriver.
Ms. Chen,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes. Okay, and the third and last minutes, December 16th, 2020. Again, if someone would like to make a motion or comments about the minutes.
I move approval.
Thank you. Second, anyone?
Second.
Thank you.
Sorry, Benny.
That's okay.
Okay,
Ms.
Yes.
Chen,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
yes. Okay, our first, I guess we have a resolution tonight. And let's see, I'm sorry, I'm using the older agenda. Our resolution is for 22 Parkside Drive. The resolution was in your packet, and if somebody would like to, if there are any questions, comments, or if someone would like to make a motion.
I move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Donna,
yes,
Chairman Cohen.
Yes. Okay, now on to the applications. Our first application this evening is 560 Lake Drive, case number Z 22-195, block 8802, lot 9 in the R5 zone. Karen, is everything in
Yeah,
order?
the noticing is in order. The board has jurisdiction tonight.
Thank you. Derek, could you?
and I'm going to leave since I'm going to recuse.
Okay.
Mr. Bridger will swear you in for tonight. Do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, now looks like George has joined us. Okay,
George. Good evening, board. 560 Lake Drive is owned by Grosso Homes LLC, care of Rich Grosso Jr. They are seeking a C1 variance to permit construction of a new home and exception to the required lot area and lot depth. Subject property is located in the R5 zone in the former Princeton Township. Existing single-family use is permitted. The lot is non-complying with respect to the required 21,780 square foot lot area. The existing 21,504. It's also non-compliant with the required 100-foot lot depth. The existing is 98.57. Applicant is proposing to demolish the existing house and construct a new approximately 3,900 square foot home, which features a finished basement, dining room, kitchen, family room, study, 4 bedrooms, and 4 baths, and a 2-car attached garage. The applicant originally applied for a prevailing front yard setback variance. However, that has been removed. The subject lot is non-complying with respect to the lot area and the lot depth. Lot area requirement again is 21,780. Existing is 21,504, and the required lot area, lot depth is 100 feet, and the existing is 98.57. The applicant should advise if they have contacted any adjoining properties to purchase a portion of land to cure the deficiency, and they request a consideration under the C1 criteria. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to address them.
Any questions of Mr. Bridger? Okay, so who is representing this case from the owner's standpoint?
That's
Hello?
I believe it's Richard Schatzman.
Okay.
But
Is he-
is he in participants maybe, or?
Rick,
Okay. Thanks. Claudia, can you bring Dave Schmidt over, please, from attendees? And I guess Richard Grosso too?
He's already here,
Over? Okay, good.
but where's
Dave
where's
Schmidt
the,
is
yeah,
with,
where's it?
he's in the, Dave Schmidt is in attendees, and Claudia needs to bring him over. He has Richard Schatzman's with him.
Oh, with him, okay.
Ma'am.
David, can you turn your sound and video on, please? We can't see you.
There we
Okay.
Yeah, Richard Schatzman, attorney for the applicant. Can you hear me, see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. As outlined by Mr. Bridger, this is an application for existing conditions, lot size, and lot depth. We originally had the plan differently. We originally sought a variance for front yard setback, but we had to recant the house towards Dogwood Drive. It's a corner lot on the corner of Lake Drive and Dogwood Drive, because we had to comply with a 40-foot setback line on the file map, which this lot is part. It's the Foster investment map that was filed in 1955. So that's why we eliminated a variance to only 2 condition variances. Say conditional existing condition variances, I meant to say. So we have witness today is David Schmidt, and he will be sworn in by Ms. Casey on the municipal land use law.
Mr. Schmidt, do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm David Schmidt from DS Engineering. I have 35 years experience in land development, 25 years as a professional engineer.
We'll accept you as an expert in your field.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt, you're familiar with municipal land use law of the state of New Jersey,
I am.
and you're familiar with the Princeton zoning ordinance?
I am.
And you prepared the plans, or the plans were prepared on your direction?
They were.
You visited the site in the neighborhood?
Yes, I have.
Okay, would you please give your testimony now?
All right, I'm going to jump in and share the screen.
Sure.
Mr. Schmidt, I assume we're going to mark this as an exhibit?
No, we shouldn't. Are we seeing it? I'm not sure.
We were, but we're not
earlier.
anymore.
I don't know why that happened. Okay, is that up?
No.
If you want, I can share my screen and pull that up for you.
Oh, that would be great. I'm not sure why this is not working.
This is the one you wanted?
Yep, perfect. If you can, I don't have control. If you can center the, there we go. Okay. I'm gonna be real quick on this. The property is 560 Lake Drive, New Jersey, block 8802, lot 9 in the R5 zone. As Derek said, the property is 21,504 square feet per your ordinance. 21,780 is the area that we need. We are 276 square feet short of the lot area requirement. As Derek said, the lot depth is 9857. The requirement is 100 feet. We are 1.43 feet short in lot depth. I believe in my profession and testifying in front of this board and many boards, this is really shy of the requirements of the ordinance, really de minimis. We'll go into a testimony on why we should get these variances. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2.5-story single-family home on the property. The existing family home is to be demolished. In the far right-hand corner is the existing house. The house has access off of Dogwood Lane. We are proposing to demolish the house and put the house in the same location as I show on the center of the property to the left. We're pretty much putting the house in the same location as it was originally. The property will have a 2-car garage, so we meet the parking requirements. Stormwater management is not required, as we are actually providing a 583 square foot reduction in impervious surface coverage. So there is no increase in stormwater management. The drainage patterns are identical to what was previously there before. We have drainage to Lake Drive and we have drainage to Dogwood, so we're not impacting any of the adjacent properties. And as I mentioned, there's a decrease in impervious surface coverage, so therefore we don't have an increase in stormwater runoff. The architectural plans are designed in a colonial manner, which is pretty much consistent with the surrounding properties. We do have the architect on board to go over the architecturals, but they are fitting with what the neighborhood that is out there. As we said, we are seeking a C1 hardship bulk variance for lot area and lot depth. Again, these are de minimis. The property to the left, or lot 10, which is the rear of the property or facing Dogwood to the rear of the house, is an undersized lot, so there's no way we can increase the lot depth of the property because the existing lot is already deficient in lot area. And then the lot 8 to the west of the property does have additional area to give us, but I see that as a task in hand for 1.5 feet to get to meet the lot area requirement. So I just don't see to go through that exercise to obtain that additional 1.5 feet to get the area that we need. As I said, we were just barely under the 0.5 acre requirement. As I said, it's 276 square feet. Richard Schatzman would go into a little more detail on that, but in my opinion, it seems like a lot of effort for a little minimal gain. The lots in the neighborhood are generally that I looked at 600 Lake Ave, that has an FAR 4683. 620 Lake Ave has an FAR 4325. 571 Lake Ave has an FAR of 3576. We are proposing 396 square feet of an FAR, which is below the requirement that we were allowed. We are allowed 4,354 square feet, so we're 390 square feet less than what is permitted. So I feel that we're in characteristics of the neighborhood that is out there. The proposed dwelling is located in the same location as the previous location. The ecological and environmental change to the property is the same as it was. As I said, the impervious surface coverage is reduced. Drainage patterns are the same. The existing property is currently served by public sewer, public water, gas, electric, and a local telephone. The proposed dwelling will access utilities utilizing the same service lines wherever is possible, and the residential garbage will be cooked up curbside on a weekly basis. So in a sense, we're just really knocking down an existing house and putting it in the same location, somewhat slightly larger, but consistent with the neighborhood. That is pretty much my testimony. I can answer questions in regards to drainage patterns, drainage increase and runoff. The plans have been submitted to soil conservation, Mercer Soil Conservation. I have approval for this development, and we do not require any NJDEP permits for this application. So that is my presentation on this application.
Mr. Fleischer if you have no questions of Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Fleischer will follow and just describe briefly the house that we intend to build, assuming we get approvals.
Can I ask one question, Richard, of you? Explain we're short on lot width. Is the lot depth, is the site next door, Dave, you went through that kind of quick. Do they have, I'm not saying we would, require that you do it, but do they have available land, excess land?
Lot 10 does not have, their area for lot 10 is 0.48 acres and the requirement is 0.5. So we would be, you'd be impacting the adjacent property maybe in setback, but also you'd be making them their situation worse because they are already under.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay. Continue, Richard. Sorry.
All right, Mr. Fleischer, you want to explain be sworn in by Ms. Casey and explain the house that we intend to build if we get approval?
Mr. Fleischer, do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
Just one question, Mr. Fleischer.
Fleischer, you want to give a quick summary of your background, please?
I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I've had a practice in Flemington, New Jersey for the past 25 years. And I've done several applications in front of this board.
We'll accept you as an expert. Please continue.
And so you designed the plans for this application, am I correct?
Yes,
And you've seen the site, obviously, correct?
I have, yes.
Okay, you want to give a synopsis to the board to see that the house fits in with the neighborhood? There's a case called by Judge Serpentelli Dahlmeyer versus Lacy that you have to show in order to prove the lack of the negative criteria that the house would fit into the neighborhood. So would you explain what the house is going to look like?
Yeah, it's
Dimensions are basically,
two-story home with gambrel roofs in the front and some peaked roofs on the sides. The materials are in keeping with the neighborhood, clapboard siding, wood or composite trim. It has a front porch with a small area off the dining room. Stone foundation at the porch level. Two-car garage that was mentioned. It will have 4 bedrooms on the second floor, 1 bedroom on the first floor. It'll also have a walk-up attic.
okay, and the house is approximately 3,900 square feet.
Yes. And
Okay.
that includes the garage square.
Okay, and then you took a look at the neighborhood, and you feel, looking at the houses in the neighborhood, that it matches the neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. Question to Mr. Fleischer? Well, if there are no questions, that's basically it. I mean, it's, as Mr. Schmidt testified, it's de minimis. We didn't go to anybody to try to get the lot area because the house next door, we could never get the lot depth, and it's only 1.5 feet. And as far as the lot area, you would have to subdivide out the house next door and get 1 to 1.5 feet and add it on. And for de minimis, I always take the position, especially if the next door lot is improved, that it's really not necessary. As pointed out by Cox, although it's indicative for the zoning board to consider, it's not absolutely necessary. And when you have this small of a deviation, it just doesn't make any sense to go through the exercise as testified to by Mr. Schmidt. And the lot depth can never be really complied with anyhow. So that's our case. Basically, the house fits within the neighborhood. It's way under the FAR, so we don't need that kind of variance. And it's testified to by Mr. Schmidt, we're actually reducing the impervious surface area reduction by 583 square feet. The house is going where the old house was, and it provides under 4055D-2 desired environmental piece of property for the neighborhood. It's aesthetic, and it provides a population density in an appropriate place in the neighborhood. Under 40, again, under NJSA 40:55D-2 purposes of zoning. So that's our case, basically.
Board, any members of the board have any questions of the applicant's attorney, engineer, or architect?
I have a question. You said that the house is essentially in the same spot, and that there's less impervious surface. And I read that you were taking out 3 trees to build. I'm just curious why the trees are being taken down and what size of trees they are, what kind of trees and how big.
One is a 36-inch oak, a 6-inch dogwood, and a 36-inch oak. One is in the house, one is in the proposed drive, and one is the dogwood is in the front. Is in the front yard, which I guess I could say the dogwood.
So you say one is in the house, so you mean?
It's basically in the proposed garage.
Those are big trees, too bad.
Right, well, it's where the existing patio is where the 36-inch oak is, so that's in the house. And there's not much I can with what I'm dealing with, which I reluctantly didn't really want to agree with Richard Schatzman on the final map setback, is I'm getting squeezed with these prevailing setbacks. You have a 49-foot prevailing setback from dogwood. We could easily eliminate or save the 36 oak and move the house toward dogwood, and I could save that tree. But you get crushed with these prevailing setbacks, which squeezes your house into an envelope that gives you little wiggle room. I'd love to move the house closer to Dogwood Lane and give the property owner a more of a backyard, but it's, you're fighting the prevailing setback requirement. And then I'm fighting the filed map, and your ordinance says the setback's 25 feet. You give me a little flexibility, we can move the house forward, and that would give more of a rear yard, and I could save that 36-foot oak. But as Richard, really put the screws on me, is I cannot get relief from the 40-foot setback. That's a filed map, and he says, since it's on a filed map, that I can't request it. So, it's unfortunate, but given these restrictions and requirements that are set by the ordinance, there's no place to really move the house. And the existing house is basically over the front yard setback, so it's in violation. So they got by because these things didn't. It's even over the 40-foot. I've been doing this for a while. I don't agree with corner lots having 2 front yards. And here we have in Princeton, we have 2 front yards. That's, give me something on the side. I'll ship the house closer to Lake, and I could save the 36 oak, and I could probably save the other 36-inch oak. But then you get into, my experience with trees. You try to save these trees, and the next thing you know, the excavation killed the roots, and next day they die. So we are planting trees. It's unfortunate that we do have to cut them down, but we are planting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trees to accommodate the ordinance, because it's based on the thickness of the tree or the width of the tree. So you get an additional. It's not a 1-to-1. It's depending on the width. So I think we're mitigating it by the additional trees, but I hear what you're saying, but you got to understand my hands are tied. And I would say I love to get relief from these additional setbacks. And I think, you could probably say, yeah, we could give it, but then, all construction, you kill the roots and it dies anyway. So it's up to you.
The 40-foot setback line is on, as I said in the beginning, is on the file map of Foster Investments, which was filed in 1955. Miss Casey can tell you a case called Sousa versus Denville. In that case, Judge Long in the appellate division said that a planning or zoning board or any land use board can't touch what is in, quote, the chain of title, close quote. They have no jurisdiction to do that. And if we moved it closer, the problem then becomes whether the title would be insurable, because it's a setback line in the chain of title within 60 years. And there's nothing that I can do to violate that. And nor can you give relief from that, because of the fact that the 40-foot setback line on the filed map is in the chain of title of this lot, as well as all other lots surrounding there in the Foster investment map. That's why we recanted the whole house towards Dogwood, because towards Dogwood from Lake, because of the 40-foot setback line on the file map. So we have 2 things to contend with here. We have a 40-foot setback line on the file map and your zoning ordinance prevailing setback. So we have to minimize the amount of variances we're seeking, but something's got to give. And the trees are unfortunately the things that have to give, especially an oak tree, an old oak tree. But Mr. Schmidt testified to, we're going to comply with the ordinance and give you 6 trees.
I,
Best we can do on this one.
I can't, I don't know how to think about the setback aspect and whether that, how, what that would mean if we, I just, when I see, I ask the question because I think it's important for us to be, and it sounds like you done what you can do, given what is being asked of you. I don't know. I would turn to my colleagues to say what, if that's, or maybe at another time is to understand better about shifting the setbacks. I don't know if that would be practical or feasible. I just don't know.
Even if you were to change the setback, David, do you think you'd be far enough from the tree to eliminate any danger to the tree?
No, I think, I could get, if I get a variance, I mean, the killer is the 40-foot setback. I move the house toward dogwood. I could get it out of the tree, physically out of the circle of the tree, out of it. But the roots go further than that. And
Sure.
I've just done this for so long that I've repositioned roadways to avoid trees, and I lived here for 35. I've lived just since 1978 in the Princeton, Montgomery region, and they just die. I mean, and I would say, or my client would plant. We got 6. We plant 2 more trees to plant on the site, as opposed to relocating this house and to try to save the tree, because I just feel no matter what we do, it's going to die. And it's unfortunate, but I just feel that the house is in deterioration, existing house. There's nothing there you can save. You can't do anything but demo it. It's got no roof. It's got nothing. It's in decay. So we got to do something. And I just feel moving the house, yeah, we'll save it on the plan, but it's not going to save within a year or 2. I think it'll die.
I appreciate your very comprehensive explanation. I do. I think you probably helped me understand the situation a little better going forward as well for others. You sound like you mean it about wishing you could and thinking that it's likely not to be saved.
I just don't think so.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant, engineer, or architect? Richard, you want to say anything before we go into the public portion of the hearing?
No. I think
Let's go.
you have the evidence before you. It's really a de minimis. And as I said, it provides appropriate location for a house. It's basically on where that old house was, and the house is decaying. I saw a picture of it. The roof is gone. It's just an eyesore in the neighborhood. So it provides a better visual environment for the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Claudia, has anyone in the public indicated that they'd like to speak on this application?
There are no hands. If you want to announce it again.
Yes. All right. We're going to go into the public portion of the hearing. Anyone that has any questions or comments, anyone from the public who would like to ask them of the applicant, his engineer, or architect should raise their hands at this time, and we'll let you into the meeting.
There are no hands.
Okay. All right. Seeing no one wants to speak, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Again, Mr. Schatzman, before we go into executive session, do you want to say anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go into executive session now. Board members, do you have comments, or do we have some concerns we should discuss? This seems to be a pretty basic application. I think Eve's comment on the tree was a good comment. I mean, it's a 36-inch tree, and to the extent we can save it, we should. I understand the complications with the setback and also David's explanation of the likelihood that the tree even would survive. So that being said, any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, but I would like to also just say that I think replacing some of these big old trees is a good thing. I think replacing them with 6 new ones is just as good as trying to keep a old one that's likely to fall down on a house. Anyhow, I move that we approve this application.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, Claudia, can you call the roll?
Ken,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
yes,
Mr. Floyd,
yes,
Mr. Shriver,
Yes,
Mr. Stein,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good seeing you again, Richard.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, our next case is, as soon as I scroll down to it, is 516 Cherry Hill Road, case number Z21-134, block 2201, lot 29 in the RA zone. Karen, is everything in order?
Noticing
Okay.
is in order. The board has jurisdiction tonight.
Thank you. Derek, can you summarize your memo, please?
Yes, Chairman. Jen and Hui Sai are the owners of 516 Cherry Hill Road. It's located in the RA zone in the former Princeton Township. They're seeking a C1 variance to permit the construction of a home on a lot that does not meet the minimum lot area or lot width. Subject lot is non-complying with regard to the required 4-acre lot area requirement. The existing 1.795 acres, and it's also non-compliant with the 200-foot lot width. The existing is 153. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing house and construct a new plus or minus 7,600 square foot home. Will feature a full basement, kitchen with a walk kitchen, dining room, family room, spa room, study, 5 bedrooms, and a 3-car attached garage. Subject property, as I mentioned earlier, is non-complying with the required lot area. Requirement 4 acres, and the existing is 1.795, and it's also non-complying with their 200-foot required lot width. The existing 153.17. And it's kind of the same situation as we did before. If there's any adjoining land to be purchased, the applicant should advise the situation on that. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Bridger? Okay. Mr. Spadaccini, I'm sorry.
I do have a question, but it might be for Ms. Casey and it might be for later, and it has to do with the wetlands adjacent area in the report. I found that, I thought that was important, but I would love a translation of it from related to this case.
Mr. Spadaccini, do you have your architect here tonight? Do
We
you
do not have our architect, but we do have our surveyor planner, Mr. Frank Falcone.
All right. Well, I'm sure that he can
I believe
speak
so.
to the letter of interpretation. Okay, even I'm sure it can be addressed with the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Coulson. We'll certainly answer that as we go through the presentation. Briefly, Dino Spadaccini on behalf of the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Sai, this evening. Mr. Bridgers always does a very good job of explaining what the case is about, so I don't want to bore the board, especially on a special meeting night, with additional details. So I thought it best to go right into our witness, Mr. Frank Falcone, as a surveyor and a planner I can qualify Mr. Frank Falcone, but I believe he certainly appeared before this board on numerous occasions, Mr. Chairman. So if you could accept him as a surveyor.
We can.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Frank, you out there though? I'd like to have you out
Yeah, I'm
there.
out here. I've been watching
Where-
all night.
Okay.
Mr. Falcone will swear you in. Do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get right into Ms. Colson's questions, just so we can get that out of the way. I'm holding in my hand here, and I'm not sure it was handed in, but what is a letter of interpretation that agrees with the delineation of the wetlands limit shown on our plan.
It's in our packets. We have it.
Okay, you'll see a wetlands line and then a parallel line to the northeast, a 50-foot buffer line. And it is the intent of the proposed construction not to encroach upon the buffer or the wetlands line. It's dated March 24th, 2021, and it's viable till 2026. So with that said, I'll get right into the explanation. Do we have the exhibits that, Derek, that we sent in?
They're all on the municipal website.
Okay, well, property in question.
You want to share that? That way, if they need to be exhibits, everybody can see them together.
Derek, could you share that with us, or
I'll have to get Claudia to do that.
there were two exhibits that were sent in
Yep.
addition to the plans?
Right.
Excuse me.
I'm trying to find which one he wants to share.
Hang
Do you
on.
know which one he wants?
Yeah, I can send them back to you right now, or I may be able to pull them up.
Well, I have him right here, but you gotta tell me which one do you
Oh,
want?
which one you want? Gotcha. Frank, which one would you like?
I got
first?
0 to 10.
0 to 10. I would think it'd be the last two, maybe. I'm not sure how they were numbered. Perhaps I could get them up here.
What's on the
Are they
drawing?
the, Frank, are they the variance plans?
They're not the variance plans, they're the other two plans. They're not the house or architectural plans.
They're colored renderings. Claudia, I'm going to send them to you right now again in an email. I just sent those. And I actually have them up on my screen. I hate to say that I'm a little technology challenged, but I'm a little technology challenged. I do have them up on my screen. I don't know by screen sharing, someone can enable me to do that. Not sure.
All of you are able to share your screen. So you just have to push in the little green arrow in the middle at the bottom of the screen. At the bottom.
Maybe I'll do that so I could direct my
Okay.
computer. Okay. Let's see.
There we go.
Are you seeing that or?
Not.
There we
are
go.
now.
All right,
Yep.
Mr. Falcone, do you want, I don't know which one of these you want this to be exhibit A1?
I'm not seeing the exhibit. That's the issue. here.
Okay. These are
Frank, let me
the-
send it back to you in an email right now. Just send it back to you, Frank.
Okay, let's see. See if I'm technology challenged also. I am not seeing that.
Just saying.
You can get on the municipal website and it's in the zoning board packets under 516 Cherry Hill.
Well, I'm not saying, but I guess I'm gonna have to wing it here. I know the plans well enough. I'll just go right into the presentation. This is a 1 acre lot on the corner of northwest corner of Cherry Hill Road and Bouvant Drive. It currently has a small ranch house and a driveway that runs from Cherry Hill Road over to Bouvant Drive. It is a 1 acre total area site in the RA zone, which requires a minimum of 4 acres. The area has been developed under different zones at different times. I see that now. Okay, the green, it's up on your screen. That's the subject lot.
Frank,
The
do you
one-
want all these or Dina, you
Yeah,
want these to be?
Yeah,
exhibit-
there's only 2 of them. Yes,
All right, so
Okay,
this one is called, let me just see,
colored rendered tax map.
Yeah, rendered tax map would be a
got
good
it.
one.
So that's exhibit A, okay.
Okay. The green is the subject property. To the south, which is actually this way, on the left of the screen, is the Nassau Capital subdivision, Bouvant Drive, which was developed under the R1 2 acre lot size. To the north, which would actually be to the right, are lots that are in the RA zone, but they are all undersized, much like our lot. And across to the, which would be the east, but is on the bottom of the page, is Balcourt Drive, which was also developed on the R2, which was a 1.5 acre. So our lot is very similar to those lots. It was just with the advent of the RA zone, which was really based on the Princeton Ridge and the topography, which required the 4 acre. There's a house in this area right here, a little ranch house is going to be raised and make way for the proposed house. It must be noted that the proposed house will meet all the other bulk zoning requirements. As Mr. Bridger pointed out, where our proposed house is, this lot narrows down. And it's along the back line of the proposed house. It's only 153 feet wide, where 200 feet is required. The applicant has talked to neighbors, inquired about acquiring additional land, but these neighbors cannot give additional land that would make our lot whole without causing them to be in a variance condition. So that's a situation we cannot remedy. The lot width, again, we cannot acquire additional lands to make us whole without causing variances on neighboring properties, so we cannot remedy that issue. The fact that this lot had an existing house and it survived without any detriment, we see no reason why this new house would cause any further detriment at all. It's really a C1 hardship variance. We cannot remedy the 2 variances that we're requesting. And we see no detriment to the public good or the zoning ordinance, and it does promote the purposes of the municipal land use law. I have another exhibit. I guess you go to the next one. I don't have power over this at all. Let's see.
Down. Should just be, if you just scroll down.
I'm trying to, but it's
Oh.
not working. Hey, the other,
Claudia has to do it. Claudia has to do it.
yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
Perfect.
this is an exhibit that shows the proposed house. It's 7,600 square feet, plus or minus. There's a very large garage, which makes up a good part of that floor area. It's going to maintain the driveway from Cherry Hill Road to Bouvant Drive. There are no variances associated with the house. And also, by our survey, we are not going to take down any trees to construct this house. There is some brush and some scrub, but there's no major trees that will come down. We have done soils testing to provide stormwater management, and we will adhere to anything required under the building permit application. Again, we feel this is in character with the neighborhood. The lot sizes are very similar, and we see no detriment to approving these variances.
Frank, I have a few questions for you with regard to the adjoining, and I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you finished with?
Yeah, I was finished. I was
Okay.
finished.
So if you can go back, Claudia, if you can go back to the prior Exhibit A1. So you'll see, oh, yeah, there you go. Thank you. So you'll see you'll see a huge swath of open space to the rear of our property and the other parcels that are along Cherry Hill Road. And it may look as if there is additional property to acquire there. That is all part of the HOA preserve land there. So it doesn't really make itself available for us to acquire any additional property there. And Claudia, now if you can go back to the other lot, sorry to do that to you, or the other exhibit rather. So the lot on Bouvant Drive that you'll note has the 0.61 acres and the 1.19 acres. We did send the property owners a letter out of an abundance of caution requesting if they had any interest in buying our property or any interest in selling their property. And I'd like to just briefly address the 1.19 acre portion in the rear that would be available without creating any additional variances. As you can see, where that 200-foot lot depth line is to the rear of that home, that portion would not even be adjacent or adjoining to our parcel. So that's, you know, put it in the discard pile, if you will. The 0.61 acre parcel up front would still only bring our property to approximately 2.3 acres, not anywhere near the 4 acres that are required. So that doesn't really address the situation either. Both, we would still be in a non-conformant situation. So I just wanted to point that out. And again, we did have some discussions with the adjoining property owners. They replied to our letter, and they may be in attendance this evening. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that. So that's all that I have on that for the time being.
Thank you.
And if we could go back to the tax map, the colored rendering. I just, the purpose of this map was to show you in the yellow, they are all lots that are undersized currently. And the Bouvant Drive properties are in a different zone, but they're basically the same size. They're all 2 acre plus lots, but none of them are 4 acre. So we are very much in character with keeping this lot the way it is. And it's not till you get down the ridge where you really start seeing the larger properties or cluster developments in that zone.
I have nothing further at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Are you going to not call any other witnesses?
We are not. Unfortunately, our architect was conflicted out this evening. Everyone at his firm was conflicted out, but we do not have any other witnesses at this time. We'll try and answer any and all questions that the board may have.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions of Mr. Falcone or his attorney? And I see the owner is here. Or do you have any questions of any of the participants? Okay.
Well, I did have that question before.
Oh, with regard to the wetlands, yes.
I thought we were going to hear about that.
Yeah.
I would like to understand what is expected of anyone who's building on that land and then occupies it in terms of in relation to that line and the wetlands. I have some knowledge of it, but I'd like to understand what you
Okay, that makes sense.
Know about it, yeah. And-
I
Um,
could-
Can
I
you
could certainly
explain the
help.
letter of interpretation and how
Yes.
that works?
As we had on before, maybe we can go back to that other exhibit we had up there, not the colored one, but the other one,
The site plan.
the site plan, right?
I mean, I know enough to know that you can't treat it as, you have to treat it differently than land that's not designated that way.
Well, that's correct. There's two components. There's the actual wetlands. And then there's and that is on this line right here where my cursor is. And then in addition to the actual wetland delineation, there is a 50-foot parallel line, which is technically called the transition area. Most people refer to it as the buffer area. You are not allowed to touch that either. So this house, although you see it's very close to that line, no disturbance, grading, anything of that nature can go over that line without receiving an additional permit from the DEP for what's called transition area averaging. And what averaging says is you can take a portion in one area, but you have to add that portion in another area. Perhaps if they needed to grade over that line, they could take a swath here, but then have to add equal amount of square footage on this side. At this point, we do not anticipate doing that at all. And if we did, we'd have to go to the DEP for another permit. And we really don't want to do that unless we absolutely had to. But right now, we are not going to do that.
And Frank, it's safe to assume, although you didn't delineate onto the joining property, that it pretty much continues out the Bouvant Drive.
Yes, yeah, it's not legal technically to delineate wetlands on other people's property because that gets you into another situation with another property owner. But when the DEP comes out and looks before approving that wetlands line and issuing that letter of interpretation, they look on neighboring properties to determine any negative impact.
So as I understand it, there's nothing wrong with building that close to it, but sometimes people might not realize that they're not supposed to mow it or put other kinds of temporary structures there. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. In my experience with builders, unless you babysit them 100% of the time, somebody's going to go over. But my suggestion to the builders all the time is to put a permanent fence on that line. Tell your contractors not to cross it or there's going to be violations.
And once you live there as well, it's not supposed to be
That's true.
turned
You're
into lawn or, used as though it needs to be left alone.
No, you're absolutely right. All our plans will have a reference as required by the DEP that this wetlands exists, this transition area exists, and hopefully they abide by it.
Frank, quick question. Did that LOI need to be recorded in the clerk's office or no?
No, it doesn't actually. Certain wetlands permits do, but an LOI does not.
Okay.
It's forced to be referenced on all future plans, so people are aware.
I hate to ask a question about that, but I mean, the letter in the body of it indicates that, let me just see. Applicant shall submit the following information to the clerk of the county where it's located and send proof to the division that this information is recorded on the deed of each lot reference.
So
That's what's in the letter.
what we can do is we can record that as required. And I wasn't sure if the LOIs did need to be recorded. That's why I asked Mr. Falcone. But we can certainly do that. I know there's a timeline for doing that, but my experience with the DEP has always been, as long as you get it recorded, they're happy that it's been recorded because they don't have the manpower to go ahead and follow up, to be perfectly honest with you. So we can certainly make that a condition of approval that we record that.
It may have already been recorded. We didn't do the LOI.
Oh, okay, then,
Another firm did. I would just suggest that someone check prior. It may have been recorded already.
exactly. But again, if the board were to act favorably on this, we would certainly address that.
Good.
I think even more important that it be honored by the owners, you know.
That's not a problem.
Good.
Yeah, the letter of interpretation says that Trenton Engineering did the original LOI work for Mr. Sy. So I guess we could check with Trenton Engineering to see if that indeed was recorded.
We can also check, we'll check in the clerk's office as well, but either way, we'll make sure that that gets done.
Thank you. Eve, are you okay with the response?
Yes.
Good. Okay, any other questions of the owner, applicant, the attorney, or the engineer? Okay, Mr. Spadaccini, we're going to open this up to the public. Do you want to say anything before that?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure you've seen numerous cases such as this, so I'm not going to belabor it.
Okay, thank you. All right, Claudia, has anybody raised their hands indicating they'd like to speak?
Yes, I'm trying to move them over. 1 second.
Okay, great, thank you.
Should I start?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Cohen. I live at 515 Cherry Hill Road, exactly across.
Mr. Cohen, before you continue, we just need to swear you in. Do you swear
sorry.
affirm any testimony you give this evening will be truthful?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I was saying I live right across the street on a driveway that we share with our neighbors that comes out immediately opposite the property in question, 516. And I have a few things to say, so I want to go through them methodically. The first thought we had when we read about this, having just witnessed and experienced construction right across the street on the lot opposite it on Bouvant, and the result of that, which is a huge house with no trees around it, dominating the property and replacing what was a historic pre-Revolutionary War structure that unfortunately wasn't subject to preservation, but was sort of a landmark and a character piece in the area, destroyed and replaced by what I'm guessing is going to be a similar sort of property. The first thought we had was, a lot more noise. This went on for months and months. It was incredibly disruptive. The house was much larger than anybody anticipated. I believe that despite what precedences have been mentioned, it did already start to change the character of what is largely a rural street with houses that are big, but mostly set back with lots of trees in front, not so visible. We were disappointed in that. When we read this, we're just terrified that the same thing's going to happen, but in spades. But that's an immediate concern. The disruption anyway is immediate concern. Our concerns, our deeper concerns, are much longer term. The first I'll mention, I don't know what to make of this. I'll say it. It's financial. I don't know how this body will receive this, especially the people who have interest in this property. But it concerns the consequence for taxes and property values. You're being asked to approve a zoning variance that in all likelihood will further contribute to the increase in property values that ultimately, if not immediately, but eventually will lead to higher taxes. I understand that could serve the financial interests of the town at large, as well as those who stand to benefit by the construction and those involved in marketing property in our neighborhood. But that's certainly not our primary interest. Even if we were to stand to gain by that, that is not our interest. We live here because we value the area, the community, the kind of the aesthetics, the rural nature of it. And this is deteriorating that. And so I don't want something built that's going to raise property values further and raise taxes. But as I said, that's just a financial consideration. The really deepest one is aesthetic. I've already said it's a house of a size that is seems just disproportionate. And I understand that you know, due diligence has been done to show that other lots are of particular sizes and houses of particular sizes. But if you just drive along the street, you'll see what was done on that other lot and what almost has to happen on this one, given the density that they're asking for. The house is too close to the street. It's forced to be by all the conditions that were described, and I appreciate the constraints under which they live. But the fact that they're squeezed in isn't an excuse to build a house that's disproportionate to the lot. You know, in contrast to the request that was made, the previous request on Lakeside Drive, this is not the minimus. The variance is almost absurd in its proportions when you just look at it on paper. It's 3 times the size what the lot is zoned for. And again, I understand that what's been done before is perhaps comparable, but a bad precedent doesn't mean that it should be observed, especially if it has sort of this deteriorative effect on our community. And it can't possibly be said, as the previous one was stated, that it will be in the style of the house that existed before. Now, I understand that that house is old and perhaps smaller in proportions than might be reasonable in sort of modern construction. But that leads me to the last point, which is housing diversity. They're replacing a house that almost nobody who could afford the current house or anyone that fits the size that it's zoned for could afford. And I feel very strongly that we should try and maintain at least some diversity of housing in our community and keep some houses in places that we're privileged enough to live in that can afford it. And this will be out of the range of anybody who could afford a house that would actually fit the zoning requirements. And so I think that really needs to be considered too with regard to, you know, the impact on the community. So though I don't really have any illusions about the influence of a sole voice, I do hope that the concerns of those who live in proximity to this property will be given the considerations they deserve. I don't believe that the variance of the plan serve the interests of the community most immediately impacted by this proposal, and those who, of course, you all are elected to represent, as well as the other members of our town. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Claudia, has anybody else indicated they'd like to speak?
Yeah, may I speak?
Yes.
Could you put the second exhibit on again?
Can you, excuse me, can you
Sure,
identify
certainly.
yourself and be sworn in?
Yes, my name is Yu Xie. I'm the next door neighbor on Boulevard.
And what is your address, sir?
250 Boulevard.
All right. And do you swear or affirm that your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Could you put on the second exhibit? So our house, 250 Boulevard, is adjacent to the property in question, 516 Cherry Hill. I would like to make 3 simple points. Could I still have the exhibit is not on?
No, we don't have it up.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Then just let me describe verbally then. So our property is next to their property on Boulevard. I would like to make 3 simple points. First, I don't see any justification. The second one, the other one. Yes. Yeah, our house is one next to their property. It's marked by, you see that, 250 Boulevard. I'm going back to the map later. The design, I don't see any justification for this application. The design house is way too big for the lot. The owners either need to build a much smaller house suitable for the lot, or they can buy a lot that is large enough for the proposed house. There are actually 2 large lots in our neighborhood on White Oak. They can purchase and put the house there instead of this corner on a small lot. Second, ordinance is the law applicable to everyone. I don't see any hardship. If you go back to the map, you could see there are many big houses, but many of the houses have large lots. Our house, for example, is only 5,000 square feet, and we sit on 4.3 acres of land. So what the lawyer earlier said is factually false. He said no house has more than 4 acres of land. We do. We have 4.3 acres of land. The other house that Mr. Cohn mentioned, opposite to their house on Cherry Hill, it's a monster house, a very big house, but it does have a larger lot, more than 4 acres. So of the 3 neighbors they have, 2 of them have large lots larger. If you go back to the map, the second exhibit, you can see there are 3 neighbors, and 2 of them, the opposite has a large lot, we have a large lot. So it's factually false that all neighbors have large houses but small lots. That's just factually not true. Third, my point is the same as Mr. Cohn's point. The impact of this proposed large house on the community, including ourselves for sure, is negative. We enjoy trees, we enjoy wildlife, we have a lot of birds, a lot of wild animals, and they are free, they have room to go around. If we have a large house sitting by the corner now next door to us, we will lose those wildlife, we will lose the peace and enjoyment of a rural life, and which was the reason we bought our house. So I think the impact of this proposed plan is negative for the community as a whole. So I end here. Thank you very much for hearing me out. So you can see those 2 lots are very large. They're not small lots. Okay.
Thank you. Karen, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Or maybe Derek or Karen? This lot is a legally subdivided lot that this was not recently created. Is that correct? So this was.
I'm going to have to defer to Derek on that. I don't know when it was created.
Yeah, I don't know the exact time that it was created, but I can tell you by the block and lot that it was maybe 30 years ago. The house that's there looks like it's built in the 60s. And I don't know if it was subdivided off of that, but
it predated the current zoning and lot size requirements?
I mean, this area is like, if you look on the tax map, there's probably like 4 zones that are right in this little corner. There's the RA, there's the R2, and it was back when the town relied on septic, and the RA and the RB followed contour lines. So it's not as, if you look at it looks like a Rorschach test when you look at a zoning map. There's no rhyme or reason to how the lots are determined.
Okay, but again,
it predates the zoning, in my opinion.
It was a legally created lot at the time.
Yes, sir.
And it's deficient in only 2 areas, minimum lot area and lot width.
Correct.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there is no other criteria we can evaluate it on. It meets the setbacks, it meets the floor area ratio, it meets all the other criteria with the exception of lot area and lot width.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make that point that I'm not of the opinion the house is too large or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying that it meets all the applicable criteria, and we're charged basically with just resolving the issue of an undersized legally created lot, and the same with the minimum lot width. Okay, well, back to the public portion once again. Claudia, has anyone else indicated that they would like to speak?
Oh, there's no one else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. If no one else is out there that would like to speak, then I'll
Can I ask
close.
for clarification, just so I understand? When you say that it meets all the other requirements for floor area, you mean for the design of the house, but not relative to the lot? Because I thought the issue
The floor
was.
area, the floor area ratio, which is a function of the size of the lot, the house falls under that floor area, which is allowable on this lot.
Can you explain then what I thought that what it says is that 7,000 square feet, that lot would only allow 1.8 thousand square feet.
Derek, can you explain that,
Yeah.
please?
Actually, the town has a FAR clause that actually permits smaller lots to have a larger FAR. It's a formula. It's a proportional FAR. So the house itself complies with all of the bulk requirements. It complies with the size requirements for the lot. It complies with the impervious coverage requirements, the height to setback requirements, the front yard setback, the side
Just
yard
not the
setback.
zoning requirements?
Yes, sir, they are the zoning requirements. The only things that it does not comply with are the lot area and the lot width where the house is.
And
So the narrow part of the lot, you need 200 feet where it goes down to 100.
I understand that, yeah. So the bottom line, though, is that the thing that matters most in terms of the community and what it's like living next to it is the one that's being violated here, which is sort of the proportion of the size of the house to the positioning and size of the lot that it occupies. And so I just wanted to reinforce that point.
I understand.
Unfortunately, Mr. Cohen, there's nothing we can.
Well, but I thought if it's a violation, why is that?
I do agree. Yeah.
It's not in violation. It's actually the town gives you if you have a small lot, there's a formula that the FAR in this zone is
So
like.
then why do they have to apply for a variance? Why are we here?
Because they had to
Because they-
apply for a variance because the lot itself, the overall size of the lot
Right.
is undersized.
But this body
And-
could decide that the variance is not accepted for reasons that the community are arguing, right?
Well, we really.
Is that correct? I'm just asking, is that correct?
No, it's not.
I'm asking the board, the chair of the board, whether the board has the authority to deny the variance in response to community comments and requests.
Karen, can you speak to that, please?
Sure. Because this lot predated the zoning, it has a situation in which once the existing house is removed, nothing can be built on it without variances being granted for the lot area and lot width.
Right.
So that is the issue before the board, and that is
And the
why.
board has the right to abide by the existing conditions? I'm just asking, I want to understand what.
No, what the applicant is saying is, if I can't get a variance for lot area and lot width, then the only thing that I can do is keep this house, the one that exists. I cannot replace it, and that is correct.
But even with one that meets the square footage requirement?
All right, now, the difficulty with the argument you're making is that the town also has an ordinance that would allow on this size lot, a house of this size.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's called a proportional formula.
Yeah.
So it allows that.
Yeah.
So for the board,
The board could
there are
decide
no-
to enforce that then, is that correct? I'm just asking.
well, the ordinance is what it is.
Yeah.
The board has to act within that confine.
So the board could decide that that's what should be decided. That is, the house can be taken down, but a new one has to be built that remains within that square footage. That's something within your power to decide. I'm just asking a matter of procedure.
No.
I
no.
don't think so. I don't
I'm
think
not
so.
asking the lawyer in defense. I'm, or the person who's making.
No,
I'm
let-
asking the lawyer
let-
for the
Let's
board.
let
Mr.
everybody
Cohen,
speak.
Mr. Cohen, let our attorney speak. Let Karen.
That's what I'm
take it.
asking for, but she's being interrupted. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, you're.
So the problem, Mr. Cohen, is that the board cannot, this ordinance exists on the books. And it is outside of the purview of this board to say that ordinance cannot be enforced. So, and this is an issue that has come up a number of times, and the board is, confronted with this in many instances, that the concern is the house is too big, there's too much mass, but there are no standards for the board to enforce in the existing ordinances. And in addition to that, we have an ordinance that specifically allows it. Says on its face, if your lot is so many acres or half an acre, under the formula in the ordinance, this is the size house you can build. So we have an ordinance that the board cannot control. We
So
then
that
have a
supersedes
situa-
the ordinance that specifies the proportion of the square footage to the lot? This is what I don't understand.
Say that again, Mr. Cohen, I couldn't hear
In the
you.
letter that we received explaining why
Yes.
there was this hearing, it
Yep.
stated that there's a variance being requested from an ordinance that specifies the size of the house, the square footage relative to
No.
the lot.
That's not what the notice says.
Okay, can I please hear from the board? I'm not interested in your opinion. I'm here to ask questions of and
Okay.
receive
Well,
information
Mr.
from the board. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen, the relief that this applicant needs to seek from this board is with respect to the lot area and the lot width. I don't know what they said in their letter. I don't know if, because the size of the house is not within this board's purview. If the house, let me explain, if there were additional variances they needed for this house, meaning the setback from the street, setback from the side yards, then yes, they would have to ask this board for that relief as well. But that's why the applicant has repeated several times, the proposed house will meet all the standards of the ordinance for the house itself. What they cannot meet is the lot area and the lot width, and that's why they presented testimony saying, even we can't get land from other properties because that will affect the compliance then of those other properties. So let's see the letter. Let's see, the letter is on the screen now. Okay, so yes. Well, I understand why you might interpret the letter that way, but as I look at it, what it says is, here's the lot size. It explains what they want to build. And it goes on to say, here are the variances we need. Now, the board has asked applicants to explain to the public, what they want to build, because many neighbors want to know that. But because of the existing ordinances, the board has no control if the house that is proposed meets the ordinances. Then the board cannot, that has no standard within which to say to the applicant, 7,600 is too big.
I understand. I will ask one last question. I promise
Sure.
it's my last. I don't want to hold you unnecessarily, but I still find myself perplexed. What happens if the board says, listen, we don't care what the size of the house is, given that it exceeds the lot requirements that are zoned. So we deny the variance. First of all, is that within the right of the board?
No.
Yes, simply yes or no. It is or it isn't.
I would say no.
Then why is there a vote at all?
What, because what the vote is the lot area and the lot width. Now,
And right, I understand, but
So-
you're not voting about those facts. Those are facts. You're voting about whether, given the proposal for the house, they're acceptable. And the answer could be no, I would have thought. And
Mr. Cohen, I would say to you that if we did not have on the books this ordinance that specifically permits this the size of this house, then your argument would carry more weight. But there is a specific ordinance that specifically allows an applicant to build this size
basically,
house.
the zoning laws are irrelevant, is what you're telling me. The fact that there's a zoning here on the books is irrelevant. It's trumped by the desire of developers to build whatever sizes they want, so long as they don't fall down. Is that?
No,
I'm just trying to
that's not the
understand.
case. That's
Okay.
not the case.
No, I don't
Then
think,
explain to me how that's not the case, given that you've told me you don't have the authority to say that the house is too big for the zoned lot.
It's a legally subdivided lot. And it's the situations they have the lot width and the lot area, or the lot depths and the lot area are not correctable, but it's a legal lot.
It's a legal lot. It's not correctable. It's the size that it has, and there's an amount of square footage that you're allowed to build on it.
And they meet that criteria.
What is A? Could you explain A? Minimum lot area, this highlighted area?
Yeah.
What does it say? It says minimum lot area, 4 acres is required. If it's required and the requirement is not met, why do you allow it?
The minimum lot area of 4 acres was created after this lot was subdivided. This lot was subdivided before the ordinance was applicable. Derek, am I wrong?
But they're building now. They didn't build it before.
I think we'd like to hear that documented. That sounds like a critical piece of information that's not in front of us.
Yeah.
It's a legal lot.
Wait, let
legal lot.
Mr. Bridger speak,
This.
please.
I mean, your argument is with the size of the house, and unfortunately, the board's had this conversation ad nauseum. And the council has even been asked to look at, amending the proportional FAR, and the town did not have, they didn't want to do it. There was public hearings and it was voted down. So we understand very well your situation. We hear it on almost every case we have like this. But unfortunately, this house complies with all the applicable bulk requirements. The only items that it does not comply with are minimum lot area and lot width, and that's the discussion tonight.
But isn't that enough? A condition that is required is not met by today's ordinance. Why wouldn't today's ordinance apply in this case?
And why, if it's foregone, is there this hearing? I mean, why has all of your time as well as ours been wasted if the outcome was foregone? I don't quite understand.
Well, it's not foregone because the applicant their argument is, and it's correct, they cannot build anything on this lot without a variance for lot area and lot width.
Right, and so you're offering them the variance, which if it's in your power to offer, it's in your power not to. And if it's not in your power not to, then there was no point in the proceeding. I really haven't heard a cogent argument yet as to why either there was no point in the proceeding or that you'd have the power to deny the variance.
Comment?
Well, maybe I'm stating this wrong, but we don't have the power to prevent someone from building on a legally subdivided lot where the deficiencies, we ask if additional land can be acquired from the neighbors to satisfy the deficiencies. And if they can't, then I don't believe we have any power to deny the application if they meet all the other standards, which they have.
If I ask you for $100 and you say, well, borrow it from somebody else, and they say they won't loan it, that means you just automatically give me the $100? No. That makes no sense. If there's a law in the books that says that the acreage.
Let's move on.
All right. Well, I mean, clearly we're not going to win this argument, but I have to say, I'm glad it's recorded because I look forward to getting the minutes and perusing these and asking colleagues who will be dutifully knowledgeable about this to interpret. And I got to tell you, this does not seem to me like the board is acting either knowledgeably or in our interests.
This is, if it's a requirement should be met. And then if the requirement is not met, then why do we have the meeting? I don't understand. It is stated as a requirement. This is a legal document. It says minimum lot area, 4 acres is required. And now we don't have 4 acres for the proposed house. Isn't that simple? I don't understand.
I'm very sorry. There's truly nothing we can do about it. We don't have the power to do anything about this.
I look forward to getting
that
from our attorney verified.
You've heard from our attorney, you heard from our zoning officer. This is not a situation unique to this house or this lot.
That worries me even more and may explain the deterioration of the community more generally. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, George, can you
Could you
turn your
speak
volume up a little
It's hard
bit?
to hear you.
I'm sorry. My question is to Ms. Casey, and that is, if one were to deny this variance, after it met all of the requirements for a C1 variance, would not the applicant have an appeal based on arbitrary and capricious denial?
Yes, certainly they would have a basis for an appeal. And I just want to emphasize again that because of the ordinance that specifically allows the size of this house, the board is constrained in how it can view this application. We have no standards other than that ordinance, which specifically will allow this size of a house. And whether it's 7,600 square feet or whether the neighbors feel that 4,000 square feet is more appropriate, or 3,000 square feet, or 2,500 square feet, there is an ordinance, a town ordinance that allows this. So I do understand the argument that is being made that if it's 4 acres and you don't have 4 acres, then that's it.
There is a reference to the ordinance. You didn't point out that ordinance that allows it automatically. There was no reference to such an ordinance, and you didn't present any evidence. We don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know why that ordinance, if it's in existence, was not referred to in the original application.
It's on all the documents. It's an RA zone. It was available to the public.
There are many ordinances on the books, and those ordinances don't need to be presented to the board. The board acts within that framework. And I mean, Mr. Bridger, I'm sure you can give our objector here the reference for that ordinance, but this is a continuing issue that comes to this board. And in light of this ordinance that specifically would allow this size, and the fact that this applicant can't build anything, meaning this house, if the argument were accepted that if you need 4 acres and you don't have 4 acres, and end of story, then that would mean.
And why couldn't that be the end of the story? I don't see why it's foregone that they have to be able to build whatever they want. I mean,
They have a criteria that they have to build within, and that's what they've done.
no, well, okay. I mean, this is just getting to be double speak because as
Well,
Mr.
I
said-
think quite frankly, we can't do anything about this. And I think if you're, as you are concerned about this, you should go to the governing body and discuss this with them.
I'm going to go to a governing body and to a lawyer. I'm curious to know exactly what the legal status of this is. I've heard your opinions. They could be right, but you haven't made them in a particularly clear or convincing way, to be quite honest, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I believe if there's no one additionally who would like to speak, then at this point, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And Mr. Spadaccini, before we go into executive session, do you want to say anything?
Briefly, I think this is, the board's obviously very knowledgeable, one of the better boards that we deal with. The zoning in the Princetons, whether you're using the old borough ordinance or the old township ordinance, they're very restrictive. So from, coming at it from this end, for the public to say that, they're being disserviced or this isn't fair, I find that far from the truth. Not that I have to tell you folks, because I know how serious you all take your jobs, and none of you, I certainly can't say that any of you have ever mailed it in. You're all very prepared and the like, but I do want to point out a couple things though. So with that said, as far as, I believe one of the board members, I'm sorry, I apologize, who it was, as far as would we have an appeal and the like, I can assure you that we would certainly have an appeal, in my humble opinion, for what it's worth. And not only would we have an appeal, most lawyers in prerogative writ cases, when they're denied, throw out the taking argument, and as a throwaway because it's generally not a taking. But in these isolated lot cases, and some of the objectors were asking, the reason for this is there is a whole litany and history of undersized lot cases on the books in New Jersey. And I can assure you that the law is very clear that if you are not to permit this due to the C1 criteria that we established, and which is basically a hardship because the lot's undersized, it would clearly constitute a taking. And I'm sure the board had, and please, I hope I don't sound that like I'm threatening anyone. I just, there was a question about, what the scenario would be. So more of an explanation, hardly a threat for those of you that know me. So I just want to make sure, it's on the record, not so much for the board. I think the board has clearly established what the criteria is. We don't meet the two requirements that are specific and unique to the property, size, shape, topography, et cetera. But we're meeting every other criteria. And I'm just a little befuddled at why that's been so hard for some of the members of the public to understand that there are criteria for the size of the house and we comply with them. So I just kindly request that the board consider all that when making their decision and hope that they act favorably on this application.
Mr. Spadaccini, I have a question. Since your client is here tonight, having heard the concerns of the neighbors, is there any willingness on the part of your client to reduce the size of the house?
I can certainly ask them, and this is one of the parts of the remote meetings that I never like. But normally, if we were live, I'd go whisper in their ear and say, or what. I'm sure they can answer that. I'm pretty certain what the answer is going to be. But again, they're compliant with everything, and they've spent a lot of time. I don't think they went into this designing the home haphazardly, but I can certainly ask them. I'm not sure who's there. Tony, are you there? Your parents there? Who's out
Hi,
there?
yes, I'm here.
Mr. Fight, we just need to swear you in. If you're going to give any testimony, do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
He's the son, just so you know, Miss Casey. That's not.
He's not the applicant. Are you here tonight to speak for your parents or?
Yes.
You are, okay.
If you'd like to speak to your attorney in private, you can call one another, or if you want to talk in front of us, that's fine.
Thank you. No, it's okay. So we've actually lived in this house since 1997. I actually grew up in Princeton as well as my brother. And so, the reason for, rebuilding this house is because my parents are older now and they want to retire in this house. And so this house, the reason why it is so large is because it's to be ADA compliant. And so, everything is larger in terms of doorways, wheelchair accessible. There's a first floor or master for them. There's a spot for a nurse to take care of them when they're, if the time comes. And then there's also, enough space for us to move in, myself and my brother. I am actually moving back to the Princeton area while this is being built. And my brother, lives in the Shannock Station, who's also here tonight. He's a volunteer firefighter. So we're all very close in the neighborhood. And the reason why it is such a large house is to be able to accommodate for my aging parents and also for us to be able to live with them and take care of them as our family grows. So that's the reason why we designed this house this way, and also why it is rather larger. But also this incorporates, the garages, which is over 1,000 square feet, and our pull-throughs just to be able to accommodate for wheelchair access and for, a car that has, a wheelchair to be able to be let down. And so that's the more reason why we, have tried to maximize the amount of space that we can have all of us living comfortably under one roof.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the answer then is no, the applicant is not interested in reducing the size.
I was wondering if you or I were going to ask the question, Ms. Casey, but yeah, the answer is no.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Spadaccini, would you like to say anything else before we
No,
go into executive session?
I think I burdened the board enough, Mr. Chairman, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I ask one question, please? Did we mark the exhibits?
We did. I thought we did.
Exhibit A1 and Exhibit A2.
Okay, which one's which?
A1 was the tax map, I
Let
believe.
me just look in my notes. Exhibit A1 is a colorized tax map,
Okay, gotcha.
and Exhibit A2, I understood it to be the proposed house footprint, but perhaps there's a better description.
It's the site plan, I think.
It's the site plan. Okay, all right.
Okay, I just want to mark my own for
Okay.
future edification.
Can I ask one more question before we go into executive?
Certainly.
I don't think we've, maybe it's on the plans, but could you just give me a kind of a quick sense of what you have in mind for the grounds, not for the house itself? In terms of,
Frank, you want to?
especially,
Well, we've developed a plan and a grading plan, but I have not spoken with the applicant about how he intends to improve the grounds. We do maintain the same driveway connection from Cherry Hill to Bouvin. It actually goes, well, it goes alongside the garage, but it's a drive-through garage with doors on either side for convenience. But we have to provide stormwater, which we've done testing for. Maybe the applicant can elaborate a little more on what he envisions for the property.
Tony, just with
Sure.
regard to the landscaping and the like.
Sure. So we are conscious of the house being so far forward to the street, because of the wetlands and the transition line setback. So we are planning on doing, landscaping in the front to provide a little bit more privacy in the front and also on the sides as well as, in the back. So, in terms of planting trees, as, sort of like a natural barrier and fence so that when you drive by on the street, it'll provide noise barrier, but also to, not be as large of a disturbance to the, neighboring neighbors as well.
so
Either you
you're going to
become-
be adding rather than taking away? That's sort of what you're saying?
Correct. So there's no trees that are currently that are going to be cut down for the proposed house. We'll just be adding additional, landscaping trees, to be able to provide more coverage.
I will add that the impervious lot coverage only increases by 506 square feet. So it's not a real big change in coverage from what's there.
Good. I did see the other, I've recently seen that other property that was mentioned, and it does look rather stark with pretty much just a lawn at this point.
Yeah, there was a lot of disturbance on that property, no doubt.
Yeah.
Mr. Spadaccini, if the board ends up approving this application, does your client have any issue with these representations he's making being conditions of approval?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so, Tony, with regard to the landscaping and the like. No, absolutely not. And again, not because, and I don't mean it's not going to disparage my client, but not because he's being incredibly altruistic, but also to provide themselves with privacy. I think that extends to a better situation for everyone with the landscaping that they're going to provide. It'll be a benefit to both them and everyone else and their concerns. So yes.
Okay.
Okay, do you have anything to add, Mr. Spadaccini?
Again, I think I've said enough, Mr. Cohen, but thank you.
You're welcome. Board members, no other questions of the owner, the applicant? Okay, we'll go into executive session now. We've heard the arguments. Does anybody have any comments, or would someone like to make a motion? Yes, Donna?
I have one more question for Karen. When we consider the variance, excuse me, and we consider whether they've shown positive and negative criteria, do we consider the size of the house in any of that?
Donna, the problem is, of course, and we've talked about this before, there's no requirement for any site plan for a single family home. And in fact, it's exempt from anything that you would remotely consider to be a site plan. So in other circumstances, if it weren't a single family home, we would be looking more closely at criteria and at the ordinance standards for site plan, which would include landscaping and, should we say, perhaps the mass of the house and its compliance with environmental, many factors. But the state law says it's exempt from site plan. All right, so Princeton has on its books an ordinance that specifically addresses the size of the house that you can put on the lot. So this consideration of, well, it is a big house and maybe it's too big, is taken away from the board, because there's an ordinance that says, well, this is what you can build. So even if the board were to say, well, we're not really sure what size it should be, we don't know. Should it be the size, the same size as the house next door? Maybe across the street? Should we draw a radius on a map and say, yeah, well, you see, let's go 5 homes out all around, and that's the size it should be. But beyond that, kind of what would be an interpretation that would really be the board saying, well, that's what we think. We don't have a standard, we're saying it. We actually have an ordinance that says, if you have a lot that's 1.whatever this is, 1.8 acres, here's the size of the house you can build on.
Okay.
So with that, I think it constrains you as a board to say, well, I don't care what that ordinance says. You know what? It's too big. So as I responded to one of the objectors, you are constrained by the ordinances on the book. So
no.
if you said, I think it's too big, all right, and what size should it be? I don't know. Should it be 5,000 square feet? Should it be 4,000 square feet? What size should it be? So we have no criteria for that. Our ordinance, in fact, it's the other way. It says, well, here's how much you can build. You are allowed to do that. So, and I think Derek pointed out that the board in the past had recommended, don't get rid of that ordinance. Don't have that ordinance. And it was considered and the decision was made to keep that ordinance on the book. So it's a combination of all these factors that it's exempt from site plan. The board has told applicants, well, that may be the case, but we still want you to show, we still want you to share with us, what are you going to build out there? I think in order so neighbors could know this. Some applicants have voluntarily reduced the size of the house. They've thought about it and they've come back and said, we will make a smaller house. Okay, we are willing to reduce the size. This applicant has said they don't want to. All right. So you're left with a situation in which if they don't get a variance, that house has to stay on the lot. Because there are other ordinances on the books that say, if you have a non-compliant lot and you take the house down, well, you gotta get variances now for the lot. So we ask the applicant, could you get more land? Then you don't need a variance. The applicant has testified, no, I cannot. Because what surrounds me, it's not feasible to do that because it will then affect the conformity of the other lots. So I understand the frustration, but even if the board were to now sort of impose its own idea of what's too big, you actually have an ordinance that tells you what is allowed on a lot of that size. So this issue has come up many times, and we come back always to, well, there's an ordinance that says it's okay. And that's why applicants are always careful to testify to you. The house will comply with all the applicable bulk standards, meaning the size, the setbacks, everything. The only thing is, here's a lot that was created long or prior to the zoning got changed. Well, are you telling them they have to keep this house forever? They say, I don't want to keep this house. I don't want it. It's too old. It's too small. So it's a difficult analysis, but I think you're constrained by the ordinance that you already have on the books. So, and the lack of any standard that you can apply now.
Okay, so no.
The answer is no. Yeah.
Okay.
Answer is no.
Thank you. I understand.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Michael?
Just a comment with this. You know, if this lot could be expanded to 4 acres by adding on to sort of the narrow section in the back, they could still legally site the house exactly where they're siting it and violate nothing. So it's cited within the code, meets all the setbacks. Of course, actually, they couldn't cite it farther back because you got the wetlands.
Right.
Which also, but it's still where they are putting it. It's a legal place to put it, meets all the code. Even if they had 4 acres, they could put it there. So, do I wish the house was smaller? Yes. I mean, you do push it to the max, you know, on the impervious cover, it's on the FAR. You're not giving up anything, but you have your rights. So I'll be voting for it.
Yes. Well spoken. Okay. All right. So board members, any further questions, or would someone like to make a motion?
I move approval of a C1.
Okay.
Unless,
I'll second it, Stein.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Does
Mr. Stein seconded it.
yes, well, I was going to ask, does the
Now-
board want to consider there were some items that were discussed tonight that were to be conditions of approval? One of them is, I mean, always the applicant has to comply with any third-party agencies. In this case, the letter of interpretation on its face says it's got to be recorded within a certain time frame. So, you know, That will have to be a condition for the applicant. If they have done it, that's great. If they have not, then
We're
They
happy,
will-
we're happy to make that a condition of
yeah, they
approval.
will have to confirm that this is,
Yep.
letter of interpretation is still in effect. And the
Absolutely.
other condition that the applicant's representative tonight said that they would not be removing any trees in connection with construction of the house, that they would also be providing additional screening and landscaping. That's pretty general, but it's consistent with the representations that you heard tonight. So I don't know if you want to consider adding that.
Michael, would you allow those two conditions to be included?
Yes, I will. Sure.
Thank you. George, are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Karen, anything else?
No.
Okay, Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ann,
Yes.
Colson,
You're muted.
Colson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Mr. Stein,
Yes.
Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good
Thank-
luck with the house.
Thank you,
Should
Mr.
we-
Chairman, members of the board. We
Yeah.
really appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And,
Can we take 3 minutes, Steve?
we can. It is, what is it, 9:31? We'll go to 9:35. You can have an extra minute.
Yeah. And Karen, I'm recusing from this
Yep,
next.
I
Yes, you
remember.
mentioned that. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, it's 9:35. I think we're just waiting for Donna and Mr. Bridger, so we'll just give it a minute more. Claudia, are you back yet? Guess not. Okay. Okay, Derek, we're just waiting for Claudia and,
I'm here.
okay. Okay, we're back. Okay, we'll,
Waiting for
Start.
Bernice. Oh, she's there. Where am I?
Bernice is here.
Yep.
Okay, Bernice, you're muted, just to let you know.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we're back in session. Our next case, which I have to find here now. Just hang on 1 second. I believe it's 61 Harris Road, but hold on, please.
Good.
Okay, our next case is 61 Harris Road, case Z22-187, block 7107, lot 2 in the R8 zone. Karen, is everything in order?
Yes, the noticing is in order. The board has jurisdiction.
Thank you. Derek, can you summarize your memo, please?
Yes, sir. Henry and Bruno Perna are the owners and applicants of, for 61 Harris Road. They are seeking a C1 variance to permit the construction of a new home on a lot in exception to the required lot area. Subject property is located in the R8 zone, and the lot is not complying with regard to the required 8,500 square foot lot area. The existing is 8,000 square feet. It's also, the property itself is not complying with regard to the required 20-foot combined side yard setback. The existing is 13 feet, and the non-compliant with the required 25-foot front parking setback. The existing is 3 feet. Applicant is proposing to demolish the existing single-family home and construct a new plus or minus 2,500 square foot home that will feature an attached one-car garage, full finished basement, office, kitchen, living room, dining room, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and a finished attic. Existing lot area is non-conforming, as I mentioned earlier. They're seeking a variance for the required 8,500 square foot lot area, whereas the existing is 8,000. And they should advise if they've contacted any property owners for purchase additional land to cure the deficiency. That's a synopsis of my memo. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Bridger?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kennedy, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First, if we could, we have several members of the applicant's family, the Pernas. So it's John Perna, Henry, and I believe B per 6100 is Bruno Perna. If we could have them moved over. And while they're doing that, I'll just give you a quick summary. As usual, Derek has this exactly right. What you'll hear tonight is that the Perna family has owned this property for quite some time. It was Henry and Bruno's parents' home, passed down to them. We'll be hearing from John Perna, their son. I can't commit that they will pass it down to him. For his sake, I hope they do. But they'll be building a compliant home on this lot. As Derek said, 2,500 square feet, we think fits nicely into the neighborhood. There are currently 2 variance conditions on the site that will be cured. The lot or the new home will be put in a more compliant location, frankly, to cure those variances. The only variance that is needed is your classic hardship C1 variance. 8,500 square feet is required. It's just under at 8,000 square feet. You'll hear that we did reach out to all the neighbors. I got to talk to some of them. They're not interested in going through the subdivision process and selling the property to us, as Mr. Bridger noted. So with that, I'd like to have, I guess we'll just start with John Perna, have him sworn in, because I think that's kind of all we'll need. Mr. Perna, if you could turn your mic on, and I'll ask the board secretary or the board attorney to swear you in.
Mr. Kennedy, just a quick question for you. You
Sure.
have, I guess, stated that none of the neighbors want to sell property, are you saying the adjacent lots are undersized? Or are you saying they just said no? I don't.
So what you'll see in our presentation, the adjacent lots are not undersized, but we did ask them, and the answers we got back was lack of interest. So we sent certified letters to everyone asking, and
Okay, and you're saying someone's going to testify to that during your
Yes.
presentation? Okay, great. Mr. Perna, I'll swear you in. Do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. John, if you could just quickly introduce yourself and your family's history with this property and your connection to it.
Sure. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is John Perna. I am the son of Bruno Perna, and Henry Perna is my uncle. We all grew up in the Princeton, New Jersey area. The house on 61 Harris Road has been in my family for about 70 years now. My grandfather, Umberto Perna, immigrated here from Italy back in the 50s, and he built the house that stands today on the lot. He had since passed a couple of years ago, and now the house is in my family, and we want to build a new structure in its place that's more in kind with current architecture in the area. So I do have some relative experience in construction and building materials, president and co-owner of Hamilton Building Supply.
Thank you, John. So I'm going to share my screen and ask that we mark, I guess, our slides that we provided in advance as our one exhibit for this evening.
Okay, so that's Exhibit A1. Okay.
And I'll promise to be quick here, but John and I will first, if we could, if you could orient the board to the neighborhood where the house is here on Harris.
Sure, absolutely. So this house is on Harris. It's on the corner of Harris and Henry, right second lot over from the main corner lot there. Dead end street, fairly quiet. Princeton Hospital used to be adjacent to the house, and it's now multifamily.
All right. As we heard before, and from Mr. Bridger's report, the lot is undersized slightly. It needs to be 8,500 square feet. It is 8,000 square feet, and the current house has existing nonconformities for combined side yard setback as well as the parking setback. And John, is it your plan when the new house is built to get rid of those problems?
Yes.
All right. So here, this is an overhead shot of the property, the 61 being in the middle, and then you said it was 2 down from the corner. So I'll try to make this easy for everyone. You guys had me reach out to certified mail to the 2 neighbors offering to discuss purchasing the property from you or by you. Is it correct that the neighbor to the left responded and expressed that she was not interested in selling the property?
That's correct.
And the neighbor on the right just hasn't responded?
No response.
Okay.
Mr. Kinney, do you have the names of those neighbors that would just facilitate?
Absolutely. One of them is Linda Carson, who interestingly, the tax records have mail going to Milwaukee, but we did track her down and speak to her because she does actually live next door. And the other owner is 72 Henry LLC.
And which one said they weren't interested?
The human of the 2, Miss Linda Carson.
And she did that verbally to you?
That's
or
correct.
To you?
To me. Yep. Don't want to swear me in, but as an officer of the court, she.
No, I can't let you testify. So, but okay. And 72. Okay. No answer. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So moving next, well, it's all going to be compliant. You want to just describe your idea here with the house that you're building?
Sure. It's a single family home, finished basement, first floor, second floor, and some third floor living space. We designed it so that first and foremost meets all the FAR requirements that are contingent for the home. And then secondly, to be within architecturally, correctness for the township.
And I see you've got a garage, but that is been set back in requirement as required by the neighborhood character ordinance.
That's correct.
All right. I'm next gonna just kind of whip through here. These are the floor plans of what you've proposed here.
That's right.
This is the site plan, and I guess it's noted that you're fixing the side yard setback problem that the existing house has.
Yeah, that represents the little jog you see in the side wall there. But yeah, that's where we address that.
Also, I'll note that while you're compliant with everything, you're actually reducing the impervious coverage quite a bit as part of your proposal. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there, I believe, the side and front elevations again? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And then the rear, as well as the other side, is that a deck you're proposing in the back?
Yes.
I'll try to keep this simple for everyone. We again are your kind of classic C1 here. The hardship would certainly be present if we would not permit a home to be built on this site. The proposal does cure and remove existing nonconformities, and the only issue is the unique size of this lot, unfortunately, which while they've attempted to remedy, as you often find, there's not a lot of interest in going through that process, or because of mortgages, it just really can't happen with lenders, unfortunately. If you have any questions for the applicants or Mr. Perna, happy to entertain at this time, though.
I have two questions. On the aerial photograph that was in the packet, there is a structure that appears all the way at the back of the property. Is that on the adjacent piece, or is that on your piece?
Yep, that's an equipment shed, and that's going to be taken down.
Okay, so that'll be removed. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one question. Then I noticed on the elevation that you presented just now, that you flipped through the side elevation. Yeah, you have a window in the basement. Are you going to have I'm just curious, is there going to be a little area well out of there? Is that a bedroom? What is that?
Yeah, so that's an egress window out of the basement. It steps out into a full access window well. With egress to the main grade there.
Okay.
But yeah, the basement's fully finished.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The basement is fully finished.
Okay, thank you. Those are my two questions.
I have a question. What's the difference in the what's the right term? I'm blanking on the footage of the two houses, the one you're taking down and the one you're putting up. What's the difference in the square footage?
From a floor area perspective, we're still going to be complying with proportional FAR at just a little under what's required. John, I'll be honest, it's such an old house. I don't know if we did as built of the existing one. Do you know what the current square footage is?
I don't. I think it's just under, I want to say just under 2,400 square feet.
And the new one will be what?
The new one's going to be about 3,500 square feet.
Does that include the finished area of the basement?
That's correct.
From a floor area perspective, it's actually closer to 2,500.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any board members? Okay, Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Perna, do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you. Nothing further.
Okay.
No.
We'll open this up to the public now. Claudia, is there anyone who's indicated they'd like to speak on this application?
No, sir, there's no one. Oh, wait a minute, there's someone there.
Okay. Please let them in.
Susan Moody at 156 Jefferson Road.
Ms. Moody, could you enable your video? Because we can't see you.
There we go.
Oh, great.
You can see her feeling really well, I'm sure.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, speak.
Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Hi, we, Bill Moody, Susan Moody, we live at 156 Jefferson Road. And our backyard properties abut the Perna property a little bit to the side. And we have been neighbors since 1990 and support the Perna family wholeheartedly with their plans for the future. And our property is separated by a public greenway, which I believe is a sewerway down the alley. And we've had wonderful gatherings together and bocce games and Umberto Perna making wine. And we just fully support this small community of wonderful neighbors and feel a good, strong friendship and feel like this is a good thing for the community.
Thank you. That's a real relief. Someone come out and support, right?
And
Okay.
what we have enjoyed down the Greenway is neighborhood bocce games. And these are not controlled bocce games. These are what you call off course. And it was John's grandfather, I believe, who set us up with probably a few sips of something that he made in his garage. And off we would go and follow that petanque and keep going. So anyway, it's a wonderful small community of very caring neighbors, and we offer our support.
Thank you for your comment. Claudia, is there anyone else who indicated they'd like to speak?
There are no hands.
Okay, I'll close the public portion of the hearing. And Mr. Kennedy, would you like to say anything before we go into executive session?
Just again, to thank you. And in the interest of time, I'll just be brief and rely on what I said before. Thanks for your consideration tonight.
You're welcome. Okay, board members, we're in executive session. Comments, questions, or a motion? This seems to be a pretty simple application, but
I'd like to compliment them on the design of the front of the house, at least. I do think it fits in very nicely, and I would move that we accept this application.
okay, thank you. We have a second?
Yes.
Sure, I'll second it.
Donna,
Sorry.
thank you. Okay. Karen, Donna can vote?
Yes, she
Yes,
can.
yes.
Yes, she
Good.
can.
Thank you. Good. Okay, Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ken,
Yes.
Ms. Coulson,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Mr. Stein,
Yes.
Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes. Thank you very much. Good luck with the house.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you all.
Okay. Enjoy the bocce. All right.
You bet.
Okay, we're whipping along here. So, you have to allow me a second here.
Brian, do you need me to move anybody over?
Yes, we could move our architect, Dan Fortunato, and Ralston Remmer, our applicant, over.
Okay, our last hearing of the evening is, oh, wait a minute, not our last hearing of the evening. Our next case is 44 Morgan Place. case Z22-206, block 6802 in lot 21. Karen, is everything in order?
Yeah, the noticing is in order. The board has jurisdiction.
Thank you. Derek, can you summarize your memo, please?
Yes, Your Honor. 44 Morgan LLC is the owner applicant of 44 Morgan Place. They are seeking a C1 variance request to permit construction of a new home on a lot in exception to required lot area, depth, and frontage. Property is located in the R5 zone of the former Princeton Township. The subject lot is non-complying with respect to the required 21,780 square foot lot area. The existing is 11,159. It's non-compliant with the required 100-foot lot depth. The existing is 96. Finally, it's not compliant with the required lot frontage 100, the existing 65.93. And the property itself is not compliant with the left side setback requirement 15, the existing is 5.24. As you may recall from this property, we saw it recently. They were granted variance relief in 2018 for a new home on a non-complying lot for the same variances that we're looking at tonight. The previous owner sold the property along with the plans for the proposed home to the current applicant at the end of 2021, and the owner appeared before the board in February 2022 seeking an extension of the original approval to construct the house that was approved in 2018. There were several ordinance changes in the intervening years, and that created new variances for the existing house design. The applicant is advised to submit a complying plan and return to the board, which they have. So they've proposing to demolish the existing single-family home and construct a new 3,300 square foot home featuring a kitchen, family room, dining room, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a full basement. Proposed home will comply with all of the applicable bulk requirements, except for the required lot area, which is 21,780, and the existing is 11,159. Lot depth requirement of 100, the existing is 96, and the required lot frontage of 100, the existing 65.93. And they've requested consideration under the C1 criteria. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to address.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Bridger? Okay, Mr. Kennedy, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, again, as Derek said, you probably remember that while it was only 2 months ago, it was about 6 meetings ago, and I thank you for all your extra work in these last 2 months. I know it means a lot to get through all of these, and I will do my best to help you get through these this evening quickly. It's, again, the extra time you guys are putting into this is very much appreciated, by the community. You may not hear it from everyone that comes here, but it means a lot, your volunteer efforts. So as Mr. Bridger said, 44 Morgan LLC, the principal here, Ralston, unfortunately was kind of sold a bill of goods. He bought the property thinking that it was ready to go with approvals that were granted in 2018. Come to find out, they had expired even with the Permit Extension Act. It didn't line up, unfortunately. We came here hoping for an extension, but what we heard was, why don't we just revise the plan to, if you recall, the prior approved design, what this board approved in 2018, predated the neighborhood character rules. So there was an issue with the driveway and an issue with the front-facing garage. The applicant, took that and went and brought in Dan Fortunato to, fix it, design a compliant house. And here we've renoticed essentially for those same bulk variances that we talked about last time, and the same variances that were approved in 2018 under Z 1818-585. And essentially we'll go through those here tonight. If I could have Ralston and Dan sworn in, I'll share my screen and we can quickly go through the revised design and the variances that we need.
Mr. Ramroop and Mr. Fortunato, we can't see you, Mr. Fortunato. Could you enable your video, please?
Yeah, I got a bit of a problem. Last 2.5 hours I sat here and my camera was working fine. The minute you put me as a panelist, it went blank. So I got a bit of a problem here.
Well, how about this? Let's go through our testimony with the applicant. It was kind of Dan to be here. We don't really have any need for him, and let's perhaps avoid that problem since he can't be seen by just going through our testimony with the applicant and having.
All right, that'd be fine. Thank you. I'm sorry about
All right,
this.
Mr. Ramroop, do you swear from your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, I do.
And you are the managing member of 44 Morgan Place LLC, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ralston. We'll just kind of go through and refresh the board's memory. I know there were probably 6 dozen cases in the last 2 months, so this may not be as fresh as it normally would be. Arrow here points to the Morgan Place neighborhood. Is that where the property is?
Correct.
Okay. Next here in blue, that's the lot at the end of the Morgan Place street.
That's correct.
That interesting trapezoidal shape. Here, this is a clip here, both from Derek's memo and from the original 2018, excuse me. Yes, 2018 approvals that you were hoping to inherit, but had expired, that lists the required lot area, frontage, and depth for the property. Ralston, you purchased this at the end of 2021, is that right?
That's correct.
And just to remind the board, you bought it and brought the plans in, and only to find out, unfortunately, from Mr. Bridger that the time had lapsed and we had to come back to the board to either refresh or extend the approvals.
That's correct. Which I did right away.
Yeah, and if the board will recall, we talked about the process for extensions, and and moving to the next slide here, Ralston, these were the original plans that you were intending to build, that you purchased. That's the elevation on the left and the site plan on the right. The problem with these was the driveway location, and as well as the flush front facing garage. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, and if the board recalls, we talked about those variances and the differences between the intervening neighborhood character, things that came during that period. It was a lengthy discussion, but the result was that Ralston, you agreed to come back and hire Dan or someone that perhaps looks like him with a with the camera to redesign the house so we could be compliant with the other new rules. This plan here, is that the plan that Dan designed for you?
Yes, that's correct.
And is your intention to be compliant in every possible way and not seek any variances other than the ones that are related to the lot?
That's correct.
All right. Here's this a front elevation of the new plans here that he's done it for you.
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Here are the floor plans, I guess, of the first and second floors, and I guess you can pretty clearly see how the looking to the left, the garage is set back the appropriate amount as required under the neighborhood character now.
That's correct.
And any other features of the house you want to talk about? Looks like there's a big front porch design here.
Yeah, the porch, I think, was compliant according to Derek.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So again, we talked about this, I'll keep saying 2 months ago. It really seems longer than that, but the lot outlined in blue, that is your lot, and then the red lots on either side. Unfortunately, those are also undersized. And unlike the application you just heard earlier, but I'll say more like the first application and maybe not the second, there's no land that could be acquired by you from any neighbor to make your lot compliant. Is that right, Nelson?
That's correct.
So they're also being non-compliant with frontage and area would make that impossible without them becoming in a worse situation, or perhaps even needing to lop off a chunk of their actual house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So building on what we talked about in February. And what this board, some of you were part of it, heard and confirmed in 2018. This is an existing undersized lot. All of the lots in this particular neighborhood, unfortunately, have that existing problem. The issue that the board heard in February was whether to extend approvals that would have allowed the applicant to build a non-conforming house under neighborhood character. What we're here tonight is really to reapprove the exact same non-conforming lot conditions, but with a compliant house. It's unfortunately it's taken the applicant longer than he was hoped and cost him some more money, unfortunately, in the process, but ultimately came around to the other side with a new design and something compliant with all the municipality's rules, unfortunately, with just the exception of those 3 pre-existing non-conforming lot issues that it shares with the other lots in the neighborhood, and unfortunately is unable to remedy them by acquiring other property. So, as you've heard a few times tonight, your classic C1 variance. I didn't make him any promises when he first came about whether we could get the original one extended. We tried, and I appreciate the board's consideration of it in February. But at the end of the day, we're back with a compliant design that's probably best for the neighborhood and for everyone. It's a bit of a hardship for him, having waited, but we appreciate the board's consideration, and also Derek and the rest of the town staff for working with him. He's eager to, as his neighbors are, him to get in. He's been eager to get this to be back to a functioning property that benefits the neighborhood. He's been kind of chomping at the bit, and certainly excited to do that if that's the board's. I won't be as draconian as perhaps your attorney had to be in discussing the other variants about how these C1 hardships sometimes work. But ultimately, we hope you consider these variances that allow him to build a now compliant house on the lot. Certainly, if you have any questions for the applicant, we'd certainly happy to answer them.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of the applicant or Mr. Ryan? Mr. Kennedy, excuse me.
At this hour, you can call me anything you want, Mr. Chair.
That's it. What's his name? So, okay, if we have none, can you stop sharing your screen there? Okay, any questions of the applicant, the attorney? Okay, Mr. Kennedy, we're going to go into executive session. Would you like to say anything?
I don't know if there's anyone here from the public on this application, but just to.
We'll find out.
Yeah, but no, nothing else before executive.
Okay. All right, Claudia, is there anyone who's indicated they'd like to speak on this application?
No hands.
No hands. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll close the public portion. Again, Mr. Kennedy, before we go into executive session.
Just again, thank you. Appreciate both. A lot of discussion went into this back in February, and I know you guys really, considered it and tried to find a way to think through this. That the hardship and the timing. But ultimately, we ended up with a better product here, something that conforms, and appreciate everyone's efforts in getting us to this place and consider. So again, thank you for your time tonight, and look forward to getting this. New property kind of spruced up in this neighborhood for them.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we're going to go into executive session now. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or would someone like to make a motion? I think this is again, a relatively simple application. We've heard it several times before, and I think at this point, everything seems to be in line with applicable requirements, with the exception of the 3 unsolvable problems. So it should be fairly simple. maybe not.
I did just notice a little note that I had made, and I wonder if Mr. Kennedy could clear it up for me. I did not see any, in the part where it says impervious surface, that part was not filled in the report. Maybe you gave that information.
That's a good
elsewhere.
point.
It will be compliant, and the applicant will be working with engineering to do stormwater mitigation. You know, and initially, the initial plan had a non-compliant stormwater system, so that will be redone administratively should you look favorably on this. And I should be able to, if you give me one second here, pull up from the plans. Derek was kind enough to move this along, but I don't think had the time to do a report, you know, since we weren't really, since everything was compliant on the new design, that there wasn't necessary for. Let's see.
I have the plans here, so.
Oh, you found that? You beat me to it. Thank you.
Yeah, the requirement is maximum 36%, and your proposal is 27.38%.
Good.
Right.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. And you'll be working with an engineer and the town engineer to make sure.
Correct.
Everything's, I know, we'll make, if we get to that point, we'll make that a condition of approval.
Absolutely. We have to comply with the ordinance. Would have it no other way.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Back to the motion portion.
Donna has a.
I have a question. Looking at the plans, there's a 10-foot wide drainage easement on one of the side yards.
I should just what that is. I mean, we certainly wouldn't be interfering with it. I think for the original subdivision, there's some underground infrastructure.
Those underground pipes, or?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
All right, and you guys won't be interfering with that at all?
No, it's all within the setback.
Is that a recorded easement?
I believe it's in the subdivision plat. That's why it shows up there.
Okay.
I'm happy to move that we approve this, but I'd be happy to share that approval process or that movement process. But if nobody else wants to do it, I will move that we accept this with the condition that was stated.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thank you. So we'll include the condition, the requirement to work with our engineer to make sure the drainage is compliant. Yes, okay, thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Okay, Claudia, can you call the roll, please?
Ken,
Not there.
Colson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Shriver,
Yes.
Mr. Stein,
Yes.
Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and now, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And
Thank
now
you.
on to our last hearing of the night. 252 Guyot Street, KC 22-208, block 7201, lot 4 in the R6 zone. Karen, is everything in order?
Yeah, the noticing is in order. The board has jurisdiction.
Okay.
Excuse me, Ryan, do you need anybody from the other side?
Yes, if you could bring over our our architect, Kirsten Hopkins, and then Kirk Gassinger, our applicant.
Derek, can you summarize your memo, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Kirk Gastinger is the owner and applicant of 252 Geo, seeking a C1 variance to permit construction of a home on a lot that does not meet the minimum required lot area, depth, and frontage. Additional bulk variances are requested for driveway setback, garage setback, the facade articulation of a sidewall. Property is located in the R6 zone in the former Princeton Township. And the subject lot is non-compliant with regard to the 10,890 square foot lot area, the existing 7603. Non-complying with the lot frontage along Ewing Street, requirements 85, existing 80.56. It's non-compliant with the lot depth requirement of 85, existing 76.44. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing house and construct a new approximately 1,900 square foot 2-bedroom home. The property or the home will feature a side entry garage, covered front porch, kitchen, living room, dining room, family room, shop, laundry area, and 1.5 baths. The project requires the following variances. The lot area variance requirements 10,890, existing 7603. The lot frontage requirements 85, existing 80.56. The lot depth requirements 85, the existing is 76.44. The driveway setback requirement is 5 feet. Proposed is 1.6 feet. The side entry garage setback requirement is 8 feet. The proposal is 0. The facade articulation sidewall limits the length of a wall to a maximum of 40 feet. The proposed wall is 56.48 feet. And I'll just mention a little bit about the side entry garage. It is set back 8 feet from the most forward-facing portion of the front facade on Geo. However, the ordinance 10B 255.2B requires that side entry garages be set back 8 feet from the nearest portion of the front facade. And in this case, that is the facade that the garage is located in. There's a portion of the facade that extends past the garage and includes a workroom and a family room. So that's the background on that variance. And then facade articulation, again, these are both neighborhood character ordinances. And this is 10B 255.2C2, requires that no side facing wall on a side property line shall extend beyond 40 feet without stepping the wall in or out 2 feet. And the minimum wall length permitted is 8 feet. The proposed design does have a bay window that breaks the facade, but it does not comply with the minimum 2-foot dimension. The applicant is seeking consideration under the C1 variance. If you have any questions, I'd like to address. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Bridger? Okay. Mr. Kennedy, please begin.
All right. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Derek, members of the board. I'm excited to kind of end things tonight with another C1 lot area variance. This is another situation where we could not obtain any more property from a neighbor without making them non-compliant. You'll see a very interesting shaped lot here that is a function, frankly, of what the applicants with their very modest one-story home that they're proposing here unfortunately requires. So you'll hear from the applicants in a minute. They're looking to relocate. This is a rare thing, but people coming from west to east to New Jersey. They're looking to, Princeton is a midpoint between some family members, and they're excited to join this community. They've had their architect design a very, I'll say, unique in size. You often hear about homes that are perhaps the change of historic variety of small housing stock to much larger things. Here we've got an applicant leaving floor area on the table, essentially, to build a modest home that fits their needs and fits, frankly, the unique size of this smaller lot that they've purchased. You'll hear about their environmental consciousness of design. There are, as Derek said, some neighborhood character variances, but we'll go through each one of them, and I hope you'll find that in each case, the thoughtful and careful design of this home actually in a kind of C2 variance way shows that this design is better for numerous reasons, whether it's the way that the angled bay window can allow sun into the home, whether it's the garage placement to save a tree, frankly, and as well as the way it's kind of wrapped with porch. And as Mr. Bridger mentioned, technically there is house in front of it, but not at that particular wall, but it is wrapped with about 8 feet of covered porch. Again, that's not what the ordinance specifically says, but a lot of the effect of it is there. And then finally, because it is a undersized corner lot, the garage placement is dictated by those sizes, and the driveway variance that's being requested is a functional one. It's was kind of curved a bit to minimize it as much as possible. And by the way, using pervious pavements, 2 different types, by the way, you'll see. But that's unfortunately a necessary function of getting and maneuvering into the garage. So with that, I guess we've got 2 sets of witnesses. We've got our architect, Kristen Hopkins, as well as Kirk and Joan, the homeowner applicants. I'd like to ask them to unmute themselves. We can have them all sworn in together this evening by Ms. Casey.
Do you all swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. John and Kirk, if you could want to introduce yourselves to the board and maybe give a little bit of a explanation, probably better than I did, about what brings you to Princeton and your needs and design thoughts with building this home for yourselves here.
As I'm Joan Gastinger. As Ryan said, we're relocating from the Midwest to the East Coast to be closer to our families. Our daughter lives in Jersey City, and our son and his family live in Virginia. So it'll be nice to be closer to them and even be able to take public transportation if we want to. I'm from New Jersey. I grew up there. Burnsville, New Jersey. So I'm really looking forward to moving back.
And I'm Kirk Gastinger. I think we wanted to ask ourselves 3 questions. One, would it be great to live closer to our family? And we've decided that that would be a good question, a positive yes. Second, where would we live? And somewhere on the main line, as Joan said. But when we finally started to think about a town and a place to live, we have always wanted to live in a more walkable community than we live in today, which is fairly walkable, but not as great as Princeton could be. And then a third point that we think would be just so super valuable is, could we build a house that was more energy compliant and even more responsive to climate changes? And we were so lucky in one way to find Geo Avenue. And a lot of people might not think about this, but some people think of Geo as being east and west, but it's actually on perfect solar declination so that we could have a passive solar house and an active solar house and a super insulated house and one that's maybe by some standards big, but at 1,200 feet or 1,300 feet of usable space, we think it's enough. So from those ideas, we've renamed the address from Ewing to Geo in honor of Arnold Geo, who was not only a famous geologist, I found out, but also a Princeton professor. And we are so happy that the street then allows us to have a happier, energy efficient house. And we'll let Kristen and Ryan tell you all the rest of the story.
Thank you. Kristen, if you could, I know you're we're a Princeton person at some point, but if you could give the board the benefit of your background and credentials, so I can have you entered as an expert this evening.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Kristen Hopkins. I'm a Mercer County native, licensed architect in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, and have been practicing for about 20 years. Like Ryan said, I started my career in Princeton working for Richard Smith Architects, actually. And then now I own my own firm and focus primarily on residential homes and buildings, and I reside in Jersey City.
And you are a registered architect in New Jersey.
I am a registered, yep.
We will accept you as an expert.
Thank you so much. I'm going to, as we tend to do, share my screen here and ask that the slides that we provided in advance be marked as our one exhibit this evening. And Kristen and we can start kind of going through. So if you could just kind of start orienting, I know you're allowed to do this because you were from the area originally too. So orient the board to where this property is and what some of the surrounding neighborhood features are.
Sure. So the address is now 252 Geo, but is right now 340. The current house is 340 Ewing Street. It's in along Geo. Actually, can you go to the next slide? I think it's a little bit better. So it's actually along Geo. There's the middle school, and then as you go further on, the high school and the high school athletic fields. Along Ewing, it's much more residential and very much a mixed use style and size of residential properties along Ewing. You can go next.
Yep. So this next, I guess, shows it's shaded a bit, but shows a very unique shape, or maybe actually it's square, it's not unique, but a unique condition here where the property is actually surrounded by kind of a flag lot that touches both on Ewing and Goyot. So you want to talk about that? We've got, just for those kind of mathematicians at home, if you recall, we're a lot area variance. We're short quite a bit from the a little under 11,000 square feet that's required. We did the math a few ways. The property that surrounds us, the only neighbor, is compliant, but only barely. So if, for example, we were to take this chunk here of extra driveway that they have, that's about 1,500 square feet. It's not enough to make our lot compliant. And even that small amount would make the neighboring lot uncompliant, unfortunately. So it seems that that lot was designed, to have enough square footage to be compliant, and the applicant's lot 252, or what will be 252, is what's left over. Kristen, any other comments about the existing features here?
Yeah, well, so I just wanted to note that the existing house is set back further off of Ewing, but is really close, about 10 feet away from Geo right now, and that the driveway is actually on the property line along Geo. So, and one other thing to note is, even if we had this property, we wanted to orient the house along the solar line. So this isn't something that we could have used. It would actually have made our house go the opposite way of where we wanted to have passive solar.
Got it. And of course, by relocating it, the side yard setback existing condition will be remedied. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And a summary of the existing variances, as you can see, and Derek said as you started, this lot is non-compliant for area. It's only 7,600 square feet, where 10,890 is required. Again, the neighboring lot is highlighted to show that there is one neighbor, and that neighbor does comply. But even if we were to take any of that property from them, unfortunately, they would not comply. The other functions are really, the other existing conditions are also that function of that interesting arrangement of the two lots. Again, the slight deficiency in lot frontage along Ewing Street, and then lot depth as well. Needs to be 85, and existing is 76. And again, none of those could be cured without making the neighboring property non-conforming. Kristen, this
And
was
one thing to note, as we reorient it, the frontage actually along Geo does actually meet the requirements.
So with that, I'll yield to you and let you talk about the fun part here and start, explaining and talking about the design that you put together here.
Sure. So, so the new home is a one-story home, 2-bedroom, modest size of about 1,300 square feet of living space. Before we even started the design, the homeowners expressed interest in creating a passive, sustainable home with a net zero energy footprint goal. And our first move, of course, was siting. And as Kirk has laid out, is that Geo Avenue is almost perfectly aligned with the Solar South. So with that, we changed the address and the orientation of the home, and the house takes advantage utilizing the solar panels. So on the loggia and the entire south facing roof, we have solar panels that will provide the electricity for the home. And the loggia in front of the house opens up to the neighborhood and the landscape, and it creates shading and softens the front of the house. We placed all the larger windows on the south facade, again, to work with natural lighting, and also created a clear story to get the southern light into the deeper part of the house and to the northern side. You can go next. So as I mentioned, we really wanted the larger windows to the south, and then the east and west. And on the north side, we actually limited the amount of windows, and we created a bay window, what we call as a bay window, but it breaks up the facade along the side rear yard, and it opens up to the east to allow for lighting to come through there. We also oriented a lot of the operable windows to open in order to capture the prevailing breezes, so that we also have passive ventilation within the house. This is the floor plan. Now, towards the bottom is Geo, just to orient you. And so you enter off of Geo into a living space. There's an open living room, dining room, and kitchen. And then the 2 bedrooms are towards the north with bathrooms on either side. And the garage is to the west, as shown in the plan. So looking at the site plan, we have a driveway as far away as possible from Ewing and Geo on the corner. And we felt like, even though Princeton doesn't count the permeable pavers for the impervious area, we actually felt like it was really important to have the least amount of impervious material on the site. So basically the entire loggia and driveway that's shaded in like the darker gray, that is going to be permeable pavers where the water can percolate through. And then the driveway in the front and in the back will actually be grass and pavers. So a majority of the landscape, the hardscape on the site is actually permeable. We already have met with the arborist. We have approval for tree replacement. We are removing 2, one because of the house and the construction, and the other one the arborist deemed as being undersized and not healthy. So we're removing 2 trees and replacing it with, well, mandatorily we have to replace it with 2, but we're replacing it with 5 or more. We also have a bioswale in the on the southeast corner, and we've already gotten approval from Mercer County Soil Conservancy, and engineering has already reviewed our drawings. So the one variance for the neighborhood character, again, we are at a disadvantage because we have 2 side yards, and really this is our rear of the home, but we have a partial articulation to break up the 54-foot wall on the north side. Again, this was pretty key for us because we wanted to bring light in, and this actually comes out 30 inches and then angles back for 9.5 feet.
So, and a compliant distance, if it would have squared up that left side at 2 feet, I guess that is the requirement, excuse me, at 1.5 feet. So to count as an articulating feature, it's a distance of 8 feet and a front to back, step of 1.5 feet. So you nearly meet that here. Is that?
Yes, that's true.
So that's the, and again, as from an energy perspective, catching the sun that way, what does that allow you to do for the home?
Well, I mean, you want to avoid north windows as much as possible because you're trying to capture the natural light coming in from the east, west, and the south.
And we didn't talk much about this, but along this side, or this is where, again, as you said, corners kind of this side back of the yard, there's a fence along here and essentially kind of a neighboring driveway that we're up against.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next character variance is the garage setback. So what do you want to say about this one? I know there was a couple. One, that it is rather technical, as Mr. Bridger said initially. The front of the house, if you consider the right part, the front, which is not quite how the ordinance works, we would be set back enough, but instead of house, we're kind of wrapped in loge. Also, I think I might have covered it up with this big blue sign here, but I think there's another reason you didn't want to move the garage back as far as maybe the code would want.
Yes, it's true. Actually, we show that you can see the tree on the next slide, but there is a very mature pin oak that we are making sure we do not injure during construction, and we want to maintain it. So when I studied actually putting the garage further back in the house, it actually endangered the tree. So we felt like we are setting back the main facade of the house from the kitchen area 9 feet, and with that is covered loggia in the front in the area in front of the garage, and then it opens up a little in the entrance. But we feel like that softens the kind of where the larger wall of the garage, and I feel like in essence we are holding true to what the ordinance was probably intended for.
And even without that, if you were to move it back, we'd unfortunately lose that tree as part of the driveway maneuvering.
Correct. And we could have added a porch, but we don't want an enclosed area, a floor area, but there's really no need to have more floor area in that space. So I think it's really important that this is the loggia is an outdoor living space, just not an inside one.
All right, and then finally, I skipped this one because you could better see the tree highlighted here that we wanted to avoid. But the last variance is the driveway setback from the lot line. I kind of crudely drew an arrow here to give the idea of how one would need to maneuver here and the problems with, if it were not allowed to be that close. But maybe you can expand on that a bit.
Sure. I mean, the entire driveway doesn't break the setback. It's really that area where we really needed to get the curve to get into the garage. So we hold the 5-foot setback at the start of the driveway, and then along the permeable pavers, you can see where you have to start to turn for a standard car. We're about 1/6 at the worst part, but for the majority of it, it's not as close. We studied the garage on this lot in so many different locations and the driveway, and there's a lot of strict requirements on a corner lot, and I think we did our best.
May I say just one brief question? Comment?
Sure. Yeah.
And Kristen tried also, one of the things that we rejected was the idea that the garage door would face the street. And we really like the idea that the garage door does not face the street. We don't intend to use the car that much anyway, because we're in a walkable neighborhood. And that's our goal, to be able to walk over to the shopping center and up into town and to use all of the services. So we really didn't want to make a statement about the garage being that important. So we thought that maybe a variance would be allowed to be able to get the car in anyway.
I think next, and just not, because the hour is late, we've done a lot of really cool things with the environmental impact. So if you could just very quickly hit some of the high points of what the applicant is doing with this home, because it is.
Sure. I mean,
about an hour on it.
yeah, no, in summary, the sustainable goals were important from the beginning, and it drove the design on a house on a restrictive site. We have a very insulated home at a modest size. We're proposing solar energy to produce the electricity for the home. Building and orientation is key, and using passive solar. And I think this is going to be a successful home with a sustainable story.
Thank you. Just, in summary, there are two buckets of these variances here. There's the ones that we can't do anything about that are a function, your classic C1 here of an undersized lot, unfortunately with a shape that we cannot change. It's both the area and the unique width and depth issues that come from a corner lot that is undersized. You heard that unfortunately we can't get any other property to fix that without making someone else non-conforming. And then, as Kristen just went through, the three neighborhood character variances, and I hope you heard the amount of thought and care that went into designing each one of those elements, and why in each case, whether it's the sidewall articulation, whether it's the garage placement, or whether it is the driveway, that those are the best solutions for this unique lot, for the reasons that we went through. We happy to answer any questions that you might have about the design or any of the trade-offs that this applicant has made in this modest house on a small lot, but we're pretty pleased with what Kristen was able to do. So thank you.
I have a couple of questions. I'm okay. I'm comfortable with the loggia in the front and the relationship of the garage to the front of the house. A question for Derek. On the rear facade, the projected bay appears to be over the setback line. Would that, I mean, it's above grade. Would that require a variance? That's the first question. And the second question relates to the 1'6" dimension, the 18-inch dimension at the driveway on the side yard. Now, obviously, on the floor plan, on the site plan, it shows the adjacent wood fence, which is on the neighbor's property. But that fence, since it's not the applicant's fence, could easily be moved to the property line. And that 18 inches is too small to even landscape. So that would create kind of an awkward little design feature on the new house. And I understand the tightness of the area pulling into the garage and everything else. So I'm concerned about that 18 inches. And also, I believe under the tree, that area is going to be pavers, and that will be impervious coverage there. That's theoretically another parking space. Is that right?
No, it's pervious.
It's pervious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's all pervious.
Yeah, the issue that we have is when you compact the soil beneath a pervious paver, we consider it impervious coverage.
Well, it's still counted in our calculations as.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that it is under the tree and it is going to be theoretically impervious. But my bigger concern is just that little corner. Again, it's a new house. It's a variance on a new house, quite frankly. And I think it, even from a design standpoint, would create an awkward situation there if that fence were to be moved back in. Those are my concerns.
I'll perhaps let Derek answer the first one, though. I'll note that, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that in the neighborhood character ordinance, there is relief for projections of a certain type, fire escapes, bay windows. There's a list of them that are allowed to project into side yard setbacks by a certain amount. I believe that's why that is permissible there. And
Yes, a 3-foot projection is.
Okay, so that would solve that one.
Yeah. And you know, it's a good point that you make about the challenges of that corner. I know Kristen and Kurt and Joan studied driveway locations, you know, up and down, and initially, you know, I think an earlier design even showed the driveway in a different location that, you know, realistically, I don't know that anyone could get into, and that it was, you know, kind of redesigned to the reality of needing to get a car back there. I believe actually that the idea of that rear section is kind of a less a parking area and more of a turnaround, you know,
Yeah.
kind of hammerhead K-turn area, so that they don't have to back out onto the street. But you know, Kristen, if you want to, you know, talk through again all the different places you looked to cite this, and again, I suppose that if that fence were to come down, it could, you know, one could go up on our side as well, for privacy purposes. On the other side of that fence is the neighbor's driveway, essentially right up against that line as well.
Correct, right. Well, and then also one thing to note, the 1'6" is only for 6 feet. And then it peels off back to getting to the 5 feet or even more. So we really, you know, strive to do the minimum amount possible to make the driveway work. But we had, because of the corner lot, we need to be away from the corner of Ewing and Geo. So it really was, it would be, you know, back on Ewing at the back of the house, and or it would be that this, as Kirk had said, we also studied the front approach. As I had mentioned, we studied trying to get the garage on the back side of the house where it is now, and we did not want to damage the tree. And so after a pretty rigorous study, we felt like this was the area that the garage needed to be, and thus the driveway is located where it is there.
It's pretty snug. I mean, you've only got 20 feet to the property line, and that's set back, the driveway is set back from that, or the paved area in front of the garage. So even with that, it's going to be very difficult to get a car in there. It's going to be a difficult maneuver. Okay, because I guess it's.
I mean, I did do the what the standard radius was for the car and to get it in the garage, and it does work.
Plus, I've been marking out on the parking lots and driving our car to see if we can do it.
You can do it, okay.
To make sure.
We practiced.
But yeah, it's fine.
The paving plan shown on the floor plan is different than the paving plan shown on the site plan. Little different, but those are my concerns. I'm comfortable with the bay in the back. I'm comfortable, as I said before, I'm comfortable with the loggia in the front, and that deference to the neighborhood character ordinance. There's just not a lot going on in that corner, and the neighbor's property is all open there, so it's not very attractive. And even if the fence came down and you landscaped it, you've got a very small area there, even to put any screening in there. So those are my concerns. I'd like to, hear from other members of the board. Anybody else have any questions of the applicant right now? Okay. Mr. Kennedy, do you want to add anything? And then we'll go into executive session.
Just again, the only other thing I'll add, I guess, about the driveway, the materials they've chosen with the grass pavers to be the front part will, as much as any kind of material could, make that part of the site, appear like the rest of the lawn from aesthetic perspective. So while yes, it's cars can drive on it, and yes, it's not fully grass, and yes, it is also impervious from a definitional perspective. It does have those, in addition to the environmental benefits, an additional ability to blend in to the site and the rest of the lawn in that corner, which mitigates from some of that visual aspect. Other than that, I think I appreciate the board's time. We've got those two classic buckets here, and Chairman, I believe you did a good job of kind of parsing through them. So with that, I'll thank you.
Was this open to the public already?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
No, we didn't open it to the public yet. I don't get me wrong. I think the house is nicely designed. I like the green aspect of the house. I like the solar orientation. I like the modest design. I think it's nicely done. But my concerns are just functional on that side. Okay, so if there are no other comments, and Mr. Kennedy, you don't want to say anything else, nor do the owners right now or the architect, then we'll open this up to the public. Now, let me ask the board one thing. It's less than 10 minutes to 11 o'clock. Do we want to try to finish this tonight, or do you want to continue?
Yes, keep going.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm fine with that. Okay, so we'll keep going. All right, so at this point, we'll open the hearing up to the public. Claudia, has anybody indicated they would like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry?
Yes, we have two people. Ma'am, you want to speak?
Okay, please bring them in.
They're in.
Okay, then speak.
Ms. Mastriani, would you give us your address, please?
Yes, it's 244 Guillot Avenue, the neighbor in question.
Okay, and we're going to ask you to swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful.
Most certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Well, I must say to the board, I do appreciate your concern in reference to the driveway for us. And I realize that the Gastingers and the Mastrianis have a lot in common, because we too are very passionate about sustainability, and our home is an active solar home as well. And at some point, we too will retire at 244 Guillot Avenue, where we started our family. So at this time, I would just request that the fence be moved to 252 Guillot Avenue. The fence was installed by the previous owner of 340 Ewing Street. And obviously you realize from the plans, it's on our side.
So you want the fence moved back over?
Yes, please.
You do? Okay, all right.
And the fence is continuous on, our driveway, and then also to the flag lot portion, wrapping it around. And it is very old.
Okay. Whose fence is it? Is it you?
Well, the good side, no, the good side is facing us. So the previous owner of 340 Ewing Street installed the fence. I didn't know it was on our property line.
Okay, so
I wasn't aware.
effectively, I guess, who pays to move it?
We would ask them to.
That's between you
I'm
and your
suspecting
neighbor.
her suggestion is that, that the applicant would do that.
Okay. All right, well, that's,
May I just hear clarity on that,
Sure.
Mr. Kennedy?
No, I wasn't necessarily, I was confirming what you were asking, that you were, I assume you're asking for the applicants to move the fence from your property.
Yes,
somewhere.
please. And put it on their property line.
okay. Just again, a little technical question. That fence is on your property. If it's moved to the neighbor's property, it goes into that 1'6", 18-inch setback. So now that setback from the drive is whatever
Is even
the
tighter.
thickness of the 6x6 posts and the fencing itself and a couple of inches from the property line. So now that 1'6" is even less.
Mr. Cohen, I do realize that. I would believe that you would feel the same way if it was your home and your property.
Oh, no,
But
no,
I
I'm
do-
not object, don't get me wrong, I'm
Thank
not
you.
objecting to it.
Okay,
From your standpoint, I mean, it's fine. I agree with what you're saying. I'm just
Thank
making
you.
note of the fact that once that goes over the property line, it takes that 1'6", that 18-inch dimension and
yes.
makes it even less. So, okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that would be all. I do appreciate your time.
You're quite welcome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Claudia, someone else? Len Swanson, maybe?
Yes, I'll start my video. My name is Len Swanson. I live at 230 Linden Lane, which is essentially around the corner from the
Mr. Swanson,
subject property.
we just need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm your
Oh, I'm sorry.
testimony? That's okay. Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I live at 230 Linden Lane, which is around the corner from the subject property. And I would like to speak in support of this application. When I decided to attend this Zoom, I thought maybe I would be objecting to it, but I'm very, very impressed with the house as it's designed. And I can't speak to the zoning issues, but I can speak to the character of the neighborhood. And the neighborhood has been changing in a way that I think is, personally, I think is detrimental with large multi-story houses. This house is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, which is substantially, certainly on Linden Lane, is substantially one-story houses. And I think they've done a fantastic job of designing a house that that really fits well into the neighborhood and makes good use of a small parcel. And it'll be a major improvement to that corner in terms of the appearance of the houses in that area.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else, Claudia, who's indicated they'd like to speak?
There are no more hands.
Okay, we'll close the public portion. Mr. Kennedy, we're going to go into executive session in a minute. Do you or the architect, the owners, want to talk about this? I'm concerned about it. This now greatly diminished 18 inches. I mean, it's getting awfully tight in there functionally to get a car in that garage.
The 18 inches is to the property line.
I'm sorry?
The 18 inches is to the property line.
Yeah, but again, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but you've only got that area from the garage door to the edge of the paving only appears to be about 16 feet. The 20-foot goes to, actually it's even less, the 20-foot goes to the angled property line, and the fence is going to encroach whatever 8 inches into that, let's say, for argument's sake. It's just, you know, we're in the midst of hearing another case that's got a a very limited space to pull into a garage. I'm just concerned that functionally it's going to be difficult to get a car in there.
With all due respect, the neighbor's driveway is against the fence.
Yes, but the fence is going to move.
Well, is the fence required?
No, the fence is not required.
Okay.
So it would certainly, I think that the applicants would be, certainly willing to consider a new fence, but would absolutely be willing to remove it so that it's.
Oh, no,
not-
that's fine, but
Yeah.
typically we try to maintain space between the driveway and the property line for some sort of landscape screening. Now, it works both ways. I mean, the other driveway, the adjacent driveway right now is away from the property line. And when the fence comes out, the drive itself will still be away, and there'll be a space in there which would allow for landscaping on the neighbor's side. It's just a, it's a
It's tough
design
area.
feature. It just allows for a little separation in there and a little bit of landscaping. Like I said before, I think the house is very well done. I'm just concerned about that.
Well, as Kristen has pointed out, that distance is only around 6 feet of length. And we have other landscaping even planned on both ends of the drive, not only on the street end and also at the garage. Another point, small one, but in studying the turning radiuses, Kristen figured out that if we have an extra wide garage door, it makes it much easier to make that turn in and out. So we really have been very concerned about this issue as well during the design. We think it's workable.
Kristen, maybe you want to say just a few more words about what is planned for landscaping there. I know we talked about the trees, but we didn't really talk about any other landscaping. And if there's anything you want to say about what was planned in those areas and what might fit.
Yeah, we have a few magnolias and then ground cover along that edge. We still have to develop more. I mean, we can work on, adding additional, but the entire, site is to be landscaped and improved upon from what's there now. So, and just to reiterate, like the angle of the driveway allows that turning radius to work, and there's just one area that's 6 feet long, that's 1'6", and then when you get to the on each other end of the driveway, you're at the 5 feet.
I understand that, but that's still from the face of the garage to the edge of the paving is still 15 or 16 feet, which means
It's 17 and a half. Yeah.
Excuse me, say that again.
It's 17 and a half.
Okay, so when you back out, you're probably still going to be, at least at minimum, the car will be hanging over the edge of the paving into that planted area, which would preclude from putting in anything of height in there. It's just a function of will it work or not? That's all. That's my concern. Okay. All right, so Michael?
Yeah, if I could, maybe Mr. Kennedy, on the facade articulation variance you want, could you restate or give me a bit of why you should get that variance?
Certainly. Let me share that slide again. And then Kristen, you jump in here. First off, the difference between what actually counts as articulation and what we've done is a de minimis difference. The bottom wall detail shows that this length overall is longer than the 8 feet required to count as an articulated wall. And it is actually deeper on the right side than an articulation requires at 18 inches. It's just that it's slightly, I don't know, trapezoidal, I suppose, to allow the sun to come in. If this were 18 inches on this back corner, it would count as articulation. So by designing it this way, essentially also orienting the windows kind of away from that second flag driveway area, it has the benefit of, you know, perhaps a little bit more privacy, and designing to allow light to come in from the proper direction. So the angle that it was designed for energy purposes is what kind of makes that technical left corner not fully fit. And we'll also note that this is because it's a corner house, it's a side that's kind of also a back. So while the front visible portion of the articulation is the full, you know, the street side, it's the part that's slightly less than 18 inches on the back side that doesn't count, is oriented to the back corner along that driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we go into executive session? Okay, Mr. Kennedy, if you want to make a closing statement, then we'll go into executive session.
I'll be very quick. I just thank you guys for you know, sticking with us tonight. It's been a long evening. Very much appreciate your consideration. Again, this is you've heard about a lot of unique lots tonight. This is a situation where the applicants have designed, we think very thoughtfully, a very modest house on a constrained lot. It could have been much bigger than this is. It could have been taller, could have been more impactful. But even with having it as being as modest as they've designed, there are still challenges from this unique lot. I think we've gone through all of them. I appreciate all of your thoughts and comments on them, but at the end of the day, we think it works and is ultimately better. And with apologies, apparently my lights turn off automatically at 11:07.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, board members, what do you think?
Well, I congratulate you on the design for both the reasons that it's ecologically sound, but also keeping in character with the neighborhood. I mean, you easily could have come around with a 2-story house or something like that. And I like the design that you put in. I think you're setting a terrific example for the neighborhood. So I applaud what you're doing. Perhaps you might want to buy a smart car. Maybe that would get you in and out of that driveway.
We're getting rid of one of them. By the way, I might just mention that, you know, we've been working hard with Tom Pineo and his team on the construction of a house, on the bidding and the constructability and the energy features. They've been a fantastic team member for us as well. And Kristen and Tom and Tyler and Bram have all been really fantastic. I don't know. We'd like to move to Princeton.
And we'd like to have you. Any other comments, questions, motions?
I also really think this is the kind of design and thought that we want to encourage, and at least I do. And I, at the same time, appreciate the chair looking out for trouble, you know, potential trouble spots. And I think that's often to the benefit of the people who are putting something in, because he sees something that other people don't see sometimes. But it sounds like you're planning to have a very small car. So I think it's great. I hope I approve it. I hope we'll approve it.
I think I do support this application. You have the site constraints. You have the corner lot constraints, which I am always very aware that that's a tough, the zoning code's pretty tough for corner lots to deal with. I accept your, you know, the facade articulation, as you say, it part of the window would meet the code, and because it slants, another part doesn't, but I think that's fine with me. You have a lot less house than somebody else would build on this lot. So.
Okay, any other comments or motion?
I'll move approval if there's no more comments.
Thank you. Do we
I'll
have a
I'll
second?
second. Oh, Eve can have it. Eve?
Okay,
A question, is the removal of the fence from the neighbor's property, is that a condition of approval?
Well, I'm not sure we're legally involved in that.
I would agree. It's not, it appears, quite frankly, to be the neighbor's fence. Just, I mean, I don't know whose fence it is. I mean, it's on the neighbor's property.
It does, if you don't, if I'm allowed to
Yeah.
speak, it does wrap their property.
Yeah. It wraps their property, and
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's sworn testimony from the neighbor that it wasn't their fence.
Okay, all right.
And any further debate is outside the zoning board to me.
May I just bring up one point? When you put a fence up, what side goes, when you own the fence, what side is in your yard?
Well, typically, as a courtesy, you put the finished side to your neighbor. But
Correct.
I mean, I live in a house where I ended up with the unfinished side of my neighbor's fence, so.
That's not nice.
It's a
I didn't know that was even an option.
It is an option. It's just a courtesy, that's all. But it's, yeah, just a courtesy. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and so what's the situation with the fence? Do we want that included in the resolution?
I think Michael's right. I don't think we have jurisdiction over the fence, but I think they've agreed to talk about it and work on it. So I let the neighbors figure it out.
Okay. All right. So, Claudia, do you want to call the roll?
Colson, I think Ms. Chen didn't come back.
Well, she indicated she was
Yeah.
having technical difficulties, so.
Okay, Ms. Colson,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mrs. Shriver,
Yes.
Ms. Stein,
Yes.
Ms. Donna,
Yes.
Chairman Cohen.
I like this house a lot. I think it's really nicely done. I have a real concern for the driveway and this whole relationship of the drive to the garage. And it's going to pass without me. I'm sorry, I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Thank you all
Good
very
call,
much.
Steve.
Okay. Okay, good luck with the house. Really nice house. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
I guess we're adjourned. See you
Yes.
all in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Good night.
Leave the meeting, Kirk.